They're not real demi-humans? Then what exactly are they? Theo furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Well, there are not many options before us. According to my experience, there are two options without a third for any intelligent living being. The first is to be from one of the branches of humanity. As I discovered previously, humans are a basic version from which many races branch. Some of them have variable particles within their blood, which gives them additional characteristics such as having a larger body like Nahari giants, or being better at soul matters like the astrals, or even not having noses and a high tolerance for the cold, like the snowmen in the north of the day. There are also some branches that are a mixture between humans and beasts, and these are what we call demi-humans, and of course there are pure humans like us. Then Robin continued, the second option is for them to be a completely different race, like the Treant and the demons. But these aren't a different race, they have human marrow, right? Theo asked hesitantly. Exactly. This leaves us with the first option. They are humans, but they are not mutant humans like the Nahari giants, nor are they true demi-humans. This leaves us with only one explanation. They were once pure humans like you and me who did not like their humanity, so they found a way to change their bodies, and this is the result. Robin stood and took a few steps towards the soldiers, looking at them with disgust. Is this even possible? Theo wondered. How did they do it? Did they drink a lot of beast blood, for example, or inject themselves with it? We all eat beasts. When have you ever heard of a person who was transformed because he ate beasts? If that were possible, I would have grown a beak from the amount of blood peacocks I ate while I was in that damned cave. As for injecting themselves with blood is not possible either. This would cause circulatory failure and perhaps death. Robin shook his head. The way human blood merges with the beast's blood inside them is not natural. The connection is close enough to change their characteristics, but at the same time, it's loose enough to allow it to be burned when needed. This is a technology or device of some kind, an innovation that transforms humans into freaks. Why would they do something like that? Theo furrowed his eyebrows and looked at the soldiers again. He really didn't understand. He had followed all their battles and saw no benefit from this transformation except the cloud of purple poison, and in return, they gave up their humanity. Why? Ha ha ha. Robin laughed loudly and patted Theo on the shoulder. It seems that you lot are getting everything so easily that you have forgotten what my hands are doing. Before Theo responded apologetically, Robin continued, have you forgotten that pure humans like us have a lower percentage of talent than human mutants and demi-humans due to a lower natural affinity for laws? Among every 1,000 humans, you may find one who has an affinity for fire, for example, but in a tribe like the Red Flame Dragon, everyone has an affinity towards fire. Theo nodded, raising his eyebrows. This alone was reason enough in his view, but he heard his adoptive father continue. What about the fact that our bodies and senses are the weakest of all mutants and demi-humans? Or have you forgotten that we do not have variable particles, and this makes using the fourth stage of the heavenly laws naturally impossible? At this point, Robin bit his nail with a mad laugh. After spending years thinking about solving all these dilemmas, I always wondered how others solved these complex problems, but it seems that these scoundrels did not solve them, but rather ran away from them. Instead of confrontation, they chose to completely change their race, ha ha ha. Theo opened his eyes and looked at the soldiers and then at his hands. Was it possible for his adoptive father to come up with the same solution and turn them into lizards? Then he looked at Robin again. This man is barely 200 years old, but he found solutions to all these problems, even if they were temporary solutions. Solutions that a planetary empire with the full support of a person at the same level as the all-seeing God could not reach over thousands of years. Theo sighed. Never in his life did he think he would be able to respect this man more, but today that proved impossible. So, is there a solution to stop this purple poison cloud? Theo pointed at the soldiers. No. Robin continued laughing. What? I told you it was a law of the destruction path. What would deter something like this? Anything I think of will be destroyed. Robin stopped laughing when he saw his adopted son's serious look. Just fight them from afar or something until I figure something out. Then he continued, also tell our guys that the source of the beast blood inside the invaders' bodies is not a herd of ordinary beasts, for example. If there were a handful of beasts using the path of destruction, the planet they came from would have ceased to exist by now. That thing is definitely a legendary beast, something like the Wyvern Crixus the Great, for the planet Nahari. What is meant here is that they have a very limited amount of blood in relation to the number of soldiers. Robin stepped forward and grabbed one of the soldiers by the neck. The soldier was pale but looked human in every other aspect. Look at this poor bastard. The amount of beast blood in his body is equal to a drop in the ocean. No matter what he does, he will never be able to use the minor law of corrosion. In fact, most of the soldiers I checked have the problem. They have enough blood to raise their talent and cultivation speed so that they can use the rune weapons better, but the number of people who can actually use this law is very small. Mostly only emperors can use it multiple times without dying. Just tell our men in the army should be careful not to get too close, and there is no need to be afraid of them. As for our martial emperors, tell them to wear their armor well and they will be fine. Uracilium metal has a high resistance to corrosion. I will spread the news. Theo nods. Good. Robin patted him on the shoulder and focused on the soldier in his hand for a moment, before returning to look into Theo's eyes. That's right, what brings you here? I came to tell you that we spotted a ship leaving the planet after the battle ended. It seems they went to call for backup as you wanted. Robin nodded and returned to focusing on the soldier. Good. Is there something else you want to tell me? No. There were some complications, but we dealt with them. The number of casualties was also higher than expected. But in general, the scenario of the Battle of the South ended as we had hoped. Oh, excellent. Robin glanced at Theo quickly, then pushed the soldier out of his hand and sat him down in his previous seat before asking, Right now I have a good idea of what is happening in Nahari, but is there anything new happening in Greenland and Orphan Blood? Approximately 50% of the tribes of the Orphan Blood planet have declared their absolute loyalty to the true beginning empire and are now receiving the same treatment as the rest of the citizens of the empire, of course. We can turn a blind eye to the fact that they are still hunting each other and that the demons are hunting them, but at least it's not in large numbers like before, and we are also currently coordinating to establish safe areas those who do not want to participate in these survival games. Another 30% of the tribes have sent their emperors to work as mercenaries for us to benefit from the point system, but the tribes themselves are not affiliated with us yet. The rest, led by Aru, still refuse to have any connection with us. Theo spoke coldly. The deadline you gave them has long passed. If you give us permission, we can raid the remaining rebels and execute them. Aru. Flora says he's just waiting for the rest of them to join and then he will follow. He's a good boy, but that bull head of his is tiring. Robin laughed and shook his head. They're not attacking our men over there, right? As long as they keep it low, then leave them for a little while. Maybe another one will join us after seeing the treatment the rest are receiving. We're not free for them anyway. What about Greenland? Greenland is 100% under your rule now. The planet was divided into 4 kingdoms as you ordered, and the remaining rebellious human tribes were distributed among them. After the division was settled, we spread part of the wealth of the 4 dead tree fathers among the kingdoms to raise the standard of living of your citizens. We also published all the techniques permitted to be deployed and established many industrial areas to manufacture divine weapons from the bark of the tree fathers. That bark is no less solid than the metal Valheim used in golden armor, as you know. We have also established several factories to manufacture medications for raising affinity and many other pills that the serum and medicine department within the research and development team has come up with. Then Theo continued without emotion. As for the army of planet Jura, part of them returned to the imperial capital awaiting your orders, and the rest who bought lands in Greenland remained here with their families to establish colonies on their lands. Those colonies are spread throughout the planet now and are subject to the laws of the existing kingdoms. Good. I don't want the local Greenlanders to think that we treat the citizens of planet Jura differently. Everyone should be treated the same within the Empire. Robin nodded several times, then smiled at Theo. What do you plan to do now? After the report is over, I plan to return to the central region of Nahari, Uexel, Father. They will most likely try to test the northern region in the coming few days, and then they will not try to make any movement until support arrives. But I still have to always monitor the situation. Robin smiled and went back to sitting in his chair. Until support arrives. Haha. I want to see their faces when we make that move, haha. After a short silence, Theo opened his mouth. Aren't you going to tell your generals? They're losing their minds. In fact, Robin insisted on waiting for the enemy support to arrive and defeat them in one fell swoop in Nahari, and even convinced his generals with this plan. But that was not all. There is one more detail that only Theo knows about. Listen, this is a planetary empire with tremendous support from a big shot. We don't know what kind of equipment or technology they have. What will we do if they somehow find out what we're planning? That plan is our only hope of counterattack. Let's talk logically here. We don't even know if our plan is going the way we want, or if they are just going along with us and planning something in turn. Isn't that why we meet on the planet Greenland and avoid making any plans on planet Nahari? It's true that even I can't sit day and night monitoring the places they're chatting in and getting their exact coordinates so we can follow what they're saying. But what if they had a way to do something similar? I see that you exaggerating here, Father. It is true that some incomprehensible things happened in the Battle of the South, but they certainly don't know anything about what we're up to. Theo shook his head. Just do as I tell you, publicize what is inevitable, and let's keep the extra details between us. As for the rest of the generals, they will know in time, or do you think they will go crazy and leave me like that reckless guy? If that happens, so be it. I will replace them overnight. Robin waved annoyingly. Hey, tell me, everything is going well with this plan? Or did you encounter any problem? Everything goes quickly and quietly. We will be able to do it anytime you order. Theo replied confidently, but he gulped quietly. Thinking about what his adoptive father wants to do is making him burn with excitement and anxiety. Robin clapped. Good. Oh, and you don't have to go back to Nahari. I want you to stay here. Me? Theo looked very disturbed. Yes, you. I have tired you enough lately. I am afraid that you were the emperor of true beginning empire and not me. Robin laughed loudly. We still have a few months or even years until the action starts, right? Take a vacation here, you deserve it. Theo furrowed his eyebrows slightly, looking worried. Robin also stared directly into Theo's eyes for a few seconds before looking away. All right, you win. I admit I can't give you up for long, but I need you to stay by Pion. Pion? Isn't he still unconscious? What should I do for him? Didn't you tell us that he's completely fine and just needs to rest? Theo furrowed his eyebrows more. Since that battle in the Azul tribe, Pion had not woken up. Look, that attack destroyed Pion physically and soul-wise. As for physically, Richard did a good job of restoring his body like new, but soul-wise. His soul domain became fragile and cracked. His primal soul itself was fading quickly, and I do not have a good soul healing technique, as you know. I had to improvise quickly before the boy died. Robin spoke anxiously. Father, what have you done? Fear began to creep into Theo's heart a little. Nothing. Well, I used a technique called soul filling to destroy the soul domains of 5 Azul emperors, including their primal souls, and then used that resulting energy to fill in what was missing in Pion. Robin explained turbulently. His soul domain is now stronger than before. His all soul force is supposed to have become stronger than Zara, but he still doesn't want to wake up. Theo's heart stopped for a moment. You're afraid that the souls of the Azul giants interfered with Pion's soul and caused its loss, aren't you? I used the technique on myself before and nothing happened. I just want you to keep an eye on him. I don't know what he will be like when he wakes up. All right, a short vacation wouldn't hurt. Theo smiled and nodded, but his smile was ugly and filled with worry. Robin scratched his head for a few moments, before waving towards the prisoners and changing the subject. Send someone to take them, and there's no need to bring more. I have a complete idea of the blood content of those low-level soldiers now, and there is something like a seal in their souls that prevents them from saying anything useful. Every time I try to destroy that seal, their souls crumble because they are too weak. They are useless. Maybe I will also start a vacation. You almost made me forget what I came for. Theo smiled. We got a bunch of martial emperors for you. I'm afraid there will be no vacations for you, Father. Somewhere far, far away, deep in the darkest depths of the universe, Poison Rock Planet Rumble Clatter. The purple sky became turbulent as usual. A rain of a mixture of water and purple corrosive poison fell on the poor humans running beneath it. Everyone fled right and left like crazy. Some of them managed to hide under one of the short, withered purple bushes. And some of the smart ones who did not go far away from their cabins for fear of the rain quickly entered their safe cabins and closed their broken doors. Those safe cabins had their ceiling covered with the same dry purple branches. Neither these nor those would be able to fully avoid the damage of the poisonous rain today, but they are much better than many others. Ah! Ah! My eyes! My eyes! The streets that were filled with life a little while ago suddenly turned into a ghost town. Half of the bypassers hid, and the rest fell to the ground in pain, or died. Take shelter here with me. My son. A human female in shabby clothes pulled a child no more than 6 years old under the balcony of a luxurious house. The mother looked at the heavy rain and her lips trembled. The rain does not kill anyone who touches it instantly, but it erodes the skin and causes terrible pain. And if it is heavy enough, it penetrates the flesh and bones until the person disappears completely. If they go back to running in this heavy rain, their fate is inevitable death. Mother, we should not get this close to a master's house. We do not have any master in our family. If they catch us soiling the walls, a disaster will befall us. The little boy did not blink an eyelid when the poisonous rain fell, nor when the purple winds began to crumble the walls of the human cabins. This was not new to them, as every few weeks, these human cabins would be rebuilt from scratch. But he shuddered when they approached that house. Then she smiled at her little one. It's okay. No one will notice us in this heavy rain. We'll be fine. Okay? We'll be fine. The boy continued to tremble for a few moments before his eyes fell on a small stable near the balcony. There stood a creature that looked like a mixture between a horse and a lizard. Above its head was a roof made of anti-corrosion stones like those used in building the master's houses. In front of the horse, there was a large number of dead frogs as food. The child returned to bury his head in his mother's chest, crying, "That horse lives better than us, mother. Why do they treat us this way, mother? Why does a drop of blood make such a difference, mother? Why do we, A drop of rain fell on the boy's heel and he screamed his lungs out, a scream that tore his mother's heart. All she could do was hold him tighter to her, but she did not dare to take the next step toward the wall for fear of touching it. All she had to do was steal a quick glance at the horse, then cry on her son's head. 10,000 years ago, this planet was like any other, full of warring kingdoms and small empires, full of different races and grudges that knew no end. Until something happened that changed the course of history. The leader of the human race, His Majesty King Pythor, left the war and everything behind him burning. He only took his close followers and left for the Beast's Hole, the forbidden area for all intelligent beings. During their absence, the humans lost several fortresses and many important lands. The good thing is that the king's absence was not too long, and when the king appeared again, he announced that they had managed to injure Durger the Devourer and collect a jar of his blood. Humans at that time did not know what to do with this information. This was really great news. Durger the Devourer is a great serpent beast that wreaks havoc on the entire world when he gets bored. Legends say that he possesses poison that can destroy everything in existence. Causing it injury was good and all, but did the king have to go fight with him at a time like this? He even sacrificed 3 of his most powerful generals for a jar of blood. But the surprising news did not stop there. Immediately afterward, the human king turned into a hideous creature, resembling a mixture between a snake and a human. But the king did not seem to mind. On the contrary, he was extremely happy and announced that the experiment had succeeded and that he had broken through into a new realm called the Martial Emperor Realm, and that they should call him the Serpent King from that day forward. He even leaked information to the entire planet. He told everyone that he had communicated with a supreme being. That being was the one who told him to obtain the blood of Durger the Devourer, and that if he succeeded, he would be accepted as his follower and would give him a way to make him obtain supernatural power by using that blood. And it was. Immediately afterward, the human race was surprised that the king had turned his close followers into ugly beasts like himself. At first, the humans thought it was some kind of black magic or that their enemies had done something to their leader or that they had changed him, but a series of events made people believe his story little by little. He began setting up workshops to manufacture what is known as engraved equipment, extremely powerful weapons, and armor that completely changed the course of the war. Then he set up what he called a space portal that makes whoever enters it disappear and appears in another place. Then he created ships that would fly in the air and launch power attacks with giant energy cannons. The appearance of all these advantages at the same time granted the human kingdom successive victories over its enemies. Within a few short years, humans doubled the area of territory under their control, which gave them enormous confidence in their beast king, to the point that they turned a blind eye to his hellish appearance. But again, when the battles were at their peak, the Serpent King's madness flared up again, and he decided to attack the beast hole again, this time using the entire human army. On that day, humanity lost millions of its righteous sons, and half of its generals perished as well. But this time, the Serpent King won several barrels of blood. When the enemies of the human kingdom tried to take advantage of the collapse of their army and dealt them a devastating blow, they found a great surprise. The Serpent King became larger in size and his face became paler. The numbers of his mutant generals also increased, and not only them, but there were thousands of demi-humans in the army this time. In fact, the surprise was not only for them, but even the human army itself was surprised by the appearance of these creatures on their side. A few nights ago, the strongest soldiers among them were chosen and they were transported to the royal palace, and this was the first time they saw them after that. They saw them after they were transformed into half-beasts. The battle ended quickly that day, hundreds of purple clouds annihilating everyone who stood in their way in a terrifying display of power that struck terror into the hearts of all enemies, and the hearts of all humans as well. The kingdom of humans, or the kingdom of monsters, as the masses of the poison rock races now called it, crushed all hostile armies and expanded their borders, but they did that steadily and slowly. In the end, the Serpent King did not bring them weapons, but rather he brought them cultivation and law techniques, methods for making weapons and equipment, and many other specialties that take time to master and exploit properly. However, while they were busy developing and creating more warships, their army was wreaking havoc on land, sea, and air after a number of them broke into the Martial Emperor's realm. Meanwhile, the number of humans in the Human Kingdom's army was dwindling. In the beginning, the invitations to go to the Imperial Palace increased. It was no longer just the senior officers who were invited, but basically any soldier who used the laws. Many of the soldiers found that this was an opportunity to become stronger and defend their families better, so they went and accepted the transformation process. The details of the process were not announced even after more than 10,000 years. None of those who accepted the process have said a word. But there were many soldiers who felt that something was wrong and refused to be transformed, and these were always put on the front lines and thrown into foolish formations and ended up dead. Little by little, humans no longer existed in the army. The entire army turned into demi-humans. A number of human leaders tried to resist the change and reject what was happening and the demand to clarify the details of this transformation process, but they were arrested and killed, and not only them but all the heads of large families, civil officials, or simply anyone who had influence over more than 10 individuals, has either been transferred or disappeared. Now the human kingdom that controlled a quarter of the planet Poison Rock has become divided into two divisions. The first division is the demi-humans who suddenly came out of nowhere and took all power. Those now are found in any position with some authority, and of course the entire army. The second division, however, is the farmers and workers, meaning the pure humans, and this division consists of more than 99% of the kingdom's population. This division was not only in appearance and capabilities but also in treatment. At first, people were happy with the development of their army. In the end, this army is made up of their fathers and sons and not a mercenary army coming from abroad. Even if their appearance changes, they are still members of their families. But they soon discovered the reality the hard way. Transforming into demi-humans not only changed their appearance but also their behavior. Their way of dealing with their families became, well, like how snakes treat their families. A cold relationship, as if they did not know them at all. They treated their own with clear arrogance. And all of this is on one hand, and the spread of news that the demi-humans ate the corpses of their enemies after the end of one of the battles was on the other. How should a person act when he learns that his son ate the corpse of his opponent? Immediately afterward, rumors spread about the disappearance of a number of young girls and boys within the human kingdom, and later their torn remains were found in the alleys. The feeling of danger, disgust, And the feeling of the loss of a loved one was the fuse that ignited a devastating revolution within the human kingdom. In the end, the number of those who had been transformed up to that point was estimated at a few tens of thousands, while the human kingdom still had millions of pure human law users. The Serpent King Pythor found himself facing external war and internal strife. His reaction was not to see the problem and try to fix it, but rather to order a halt to outer expansion and to send the army inside. The army that was made up of demi-humans, the army that was made up of the sons and fathers and grandfathers of those who carried out the revolution did not even try to restrain themselves against their families. It is true that the numerical advantage was huge for the humans, but the difference in quality and the fact that there were emperors among the demi-humans gave them an overwhelming might. On that day, a real war broke out between the humans and their army, a massacre that turned the soil of the human kingdom red. After completely crushing the revolution and killing hundreds of thousands of his people, the first decision taken by the Serpent King Pythor was to withdraw energy cultivation techniques from pure humans so that this strife would not be repeated again. He also issued a decision to ban them officially from joining the army and obtaining any high position. He also took away their right to own lands and businesses so as not to finance any subversive activities. What will happen to agricultural lands, stores, etc.? It was distributed among the demi-humans. If one of the demi-humans in the army has a family that owns anything, then everything the family owns becomes his property, and that same family becomes under his protection and supervision. Under this law, the human family can continue to work on that property, but everything will belong to the demi-human alone, and he is responsible for providing food for his family and controlling them if they do anything against the interest of the kingdom. And these are the lucky ones. At least they stayed in their homes and worked on their property. They could also say, "We are from so-and-so's family," and they would be safe. In comparison, families that did not have a demi-human among them had their property distributed randomly among demi-human strangers, and they themselves were randomly divided and distributed to work in the fields and mines with no one to be responsible for them, and without any law or anyone to give them any protection. If the families that had a demi-human being are treated as household servants, then the families that do not have one have completely turned into slaves without any kind of rights. Those decisions sent a strong shock to the entire planet. Humans became second- and third-class citizens inside their own kingdom. When everyone saw how crazy the Serpent King was, the entire planet united against him. But it was too late. Strange phenomena began to appear on the battlefields, such as lightning suddenly striking the enemy generals or the ground quaking and swallowing armies. Natural phenomena, one after the other, brought terror into the hearts of everyone and further strengthened Pythor's authority, who claimed that the heavens supported his endeavor. 500 years. That's all Pythor needed to impose his control over the entire planet. All non-human races were exterminated without a baby being left behind. The planet Poison Rock had only humans left behind. On that day, Pythor announced the establishment of the Great Serpent Planetary Empire and made the first public offering to the Overlord through the space portal. The offering consisted of 4,000 energy pearls and a batch of ores that he had collected from all of the other kingdoms. And everyone soon learned why their empire was called a planetary empire. After several days, His Majesty the Planetary Emperor Pythor came out and announced that the Overlord had provided them with the coordinates of a new planet waiting to be explored, so the warships moved again, but this time upwards, toward the first and last planet the Overlord has given to the Great Serpent Empire. Towards what is now known as Planet F1. Although the Serpent Emperor had barely 30 warships at the time, the Dwarven World Planet, or what would later be called Planet F1, was not a major challenge for the Great Serpent Empire. The planet was young in every sense of the word. There the inhabitants barely knew that they could use the third stage of the heavenly laws and become sages. The mutant human dwarves control most of the planet. There are a few wars here and there, but overall it is a peaceful place to live. In the end, the dwarves tend to love trade, industry, and hoarding money, and wars are always their last concern. The appearance of space warships was like doomsday for them. Ugly monsters that are not humans or snakes, using a minor law related to the path of destruction. Who can stop something like this? Not only that, but among them are dozens of people who can use the fourth stage of the heavenly laws. However, the indigenous people did not surrender. as there was a fatal weakness in the forces of the snake invaders, their small numbers. Those damned invaders had the audacity to attack a planet with a population estimated at hundreds of millions, with some tens of thousands of soldiers. The planet united against the invasion of the Great Serpent Empire. They were besieged several times and managed to cause them heavy losses. But their determination only bought them some time. In the end, the planet fell and was named F1, or the First Farm. However, their resistance was not completely in vain. This war lasted for nearly 600 years and forced the Serpent Emperor Pythor to send every new ship to be built with all possible support to get it done. The demi-human had been celebrating the takeover of their second planet after their home planet for months, but the Serpent Emperor and his close followers were preoccupied with something else, with the huge weakness this war had revealed: their hopelessly small numbers. Nearly 60% of the soldiers he transformed after the last campaign against Durger the Devourer had ended up dead by now, and the problem is that nearly 1,000 years after the first transformation case, not one of them succeeded in giving birth to a child carrying the blood lineage of Durger the Devourer. They all give birth to pure humans, meaning their numbers are only going to be lower with time. After more than 1,000 years had passed, he found himself looking towards the beast hole again. Durger the Devourer is a legendary beast that has lived for countless years and is also extremely intelligent. After its first battle against Pythor and his followers, it surrounded itself with a number of high-level beasts. And after Pythor brought the entire human army to fight him and cause him some wounds, Durger the Devourer prepared the beast hole area to be like a fortress, ready for any upcoming attack. That beast killed hundreds of thousands of the human army in the attack that took place almost 1,000 years ago in exchange for causing a few separate wounds on its invulnerable body. And yet it acts as if it were the victim. Should I go fight that thing whenever the number of my soldiers decreases? Pythor almost broke his fangs. He desperately wanted to communicate with the Overlord, but he was afraid that he would disturb him and die without knowing what happened, so he decided to try something himself. Pythor summoned most of his army from the F1 planet and then gathered all the humans capable of carrying weapons, and the weapons mentioned here for the humans were not some engraved weapons, but rather just axes and shovels, but at least he was able to gather an army of 2 million strong. With 40 emperors, 15,000 demi-humans, and 2 million mortals in the lead, Pythor entered the beast's hole area again. And only 20 emperors, 3,000 demi-humans, and a few barrels came out with him. The first thing Pythor did after he got out was take one of the barrels and disappear into his palace. When he appeared a month later, the barrel was empty, and he himself was a completely different person. His aura grew stronger and darker, his height increased to nearly 4 meters, and his head that had turned bald previously had hair again. But each strand was like a snake of its own. His feet and arms appeared to have no knees or joints. He had become a true monster. Whatever made Pythor human before had disappeared once and for all. What did he do with this power? He ordered hundreds of human females to be brought to his palace. Within a few months, these women began to give birth to little monsters like himself. Pythor succeeded in his quest. Strengthening his bloodline enabled him to pass on his abilities to a new generation for the first time. But he was not able to give this opportunity to everyone. Rather, he was not able to give it to his 20 generals since the number of barrels was simply not enough. And he also would not wait until he had an army made up of only his sons and a handful of his assistants. So he started doing the exact opposite. Instead of allocating a small vial of blood to each soldier, he decided to make it 1 drop, then reduce that amount to be 1/10 of a drop, then less. This made most of the new generation of Imperial soldiers unable to use the minor heavenly law of corrosion, and those who had enough blood to use it once or twice would die immediately afterward. But at least this solved the problem for Pythor. After previously dividing humans into 3 classes, Pythor added a new class, those who had a lot of Durger the Devourer's blood and those who had too little. But this did not prevent the pure humans from entering into fierce competitions in which they killed each other until a handful of them were chosen to join the army and receive even an atom's weight of the devouring Drager's blood to escape their miserable lives. The one who performs heroic deeds and obtains a 1/4 drop of the Durger the Devourer's blood enjoys great respect among his peers and becomes a source of pride for his human family. And the members of his human family have a greater chance of deserving some of the blood and joining the army. And of course, the more the number of demi-humans in one family, the stronger and more respectable this family will become. There are also those who win the lottery, such as General Haros of the First Fleet, and obtain enough blood to pass on his lineage to the next generation of his children. Those who get this honor will have enough pride and glory to walk with their head above the clouds at any place reached by the Great Serpent Empire. This was the beginning of the Great Serpent Empire. A great figure from a higher world found someone perfect for his plans, resulting in a planetary empire that exudes a mixture of ambition and madness, racism and glory. Poison Rock Planet Imperial Palace. In a huge hall, the beginning and end of which could not be seen, a handful of people sat around a square table, with each of them having special characteristics. One of them, for example, had a snake's tail instead of feet. One of them had a long, cloven tongue hanging outside his mouth. Another one had a complete snake head without any human traces on its features. The only thing they all agreed on was to argue. Almost an hour had passed since their meeting here, and the room didn't know quiet for a moment. This was the meeting of the 9 marshals that happens every quarter of a century. I am the one who should receive support. The revolt on planet R2 occurred 3 years ago and is still ongoing, and because of this we lost 3 mines for the Phosastrone metal, and production has decreased greatly. We must restore those mines. One of the marshals objected. His slit, completely red eyes were terrifying. Go and get them back then, what do we have to do with it? You already have 3 fleets on planet R2 and you cannot crush some of the rebels after 1,000 years have passed. Shall we leave our tasks and come to play with you? Another marshal spoke sarcastically. The rebels are demi-humans that have the bloodline of the ground-searching mouse who live underground and strike in unexpected places and times. How the hell am I supposed to find them without a wide deployment of forces? That marshal slammed the table. Secondly, aren't you also asking for support? Planet S3 is supposed to be completely under our control. What are you going to do with the support? I don't need more soldiers. What I so need is a lot of ships. I want more ships to transport more manpower to work there and increase the production for His Majesty. That's all. Nonsense, you want to increase your party's political strength with these ships. So what? When you crush the resistance on your planet, you can also have your damn political strength as much as you like. In fact, this was not a fight or even an exception. In all the marshals' meetings, this scene is repeated in its entirety. A marshal is the highest military and political rank under the Serpent Emperor. Only generals who have accumulated enormous contributions to the planetary empire, have sufficient strength and intelligence, and have a strong and influential family, can hold this position. Even if all of these factors are present, there are 2 things that stand in the way of the generals reaching the position. The first is that the marshal is the ruler of a planet belonging to the empire, meaning that one of the current marshals must die, or a new planet must be discovered in order for the opportunity to become available to fill the position. The second obstacle, of course, is the availability of Durger the Devourer's blood, as all marshals obtain just enough blood from Durger the Devourer so that they gain the ability to pass their lineage to their offspring, and of course, this amount of blood is not always available in the Empire. 9. This is the current number of marshals, and each one of them rules his own planet. Even planet Poison Rock is ruled by Marshal Celebus, a close friend of the Serpent Emperor Pyther, who has accompanied him since he was just a prince. The 9 planets are divided into 3 classifications. First, the Poison Rock, which is called the Mother Planet. Second, the F classification, which means that the entire planet is under the control of the Empire. Then the R classification, which means that there is a part of that planet that is still resisting. Away from that annoying table, there were stairs leading up to a high platform. Above that platform was nothing but a huge throne, and sitting on it was a person more than 4 meters tall wearing a silver crown. His terrifying features did not prevent his aura of dignity and calm. It was Planetary Emperor Pyther. This is fun. This is annoying. A child's voice suddenly sounded next to Pyther's shoulder. Within moments, the air around the throne began to compress, forming a small body that began to float around the throne. The body was of a little girl. It looked as if her hair and dress were made of a sticky substance. Her short hair fell over one of her eyes, covering it, and the other eye was large and focused, with her raised eyebrow visible above it, and her laughing little mouth had only 4 small fangs. Overall, she looked cute. Planetary Emperor Pythor remained silent for a few more seconds, ignoring the girl, before opening and asking with his eyes still closed. Rocky, how many have the storm killed so far? 734 humans, and the number is still rising. The poison rock planet spirit stopped flying and gave a serious military salute. Alright, this should be enough. Take the storm to another village. Oof. You send storms to kill them because they reproduce a lot, and they reproduce a lot because they want to compensate for their children you're killing using the storms. Can't you just build them some good houses? Rocky put her hand on her waist, annoyed. Pythor laughed in a low voice. Even before I refined you, you used to send us these storms once or twice a month. What, you became good now? Hey, I'm not sending anything. I was created with atmospheres and beasts that tend to contain poisons that cause corrosion. What's my fault? Rocky defended herself. I may not be able to stop the storms completely, but why don't you order me to always send those storms towards the desert? That would be acceptable. And lose a good way to control the population. The planet's resources are scarce. Isn't that the basis of wars in the past? Without a way to control the human population, there will be a famine. Pythor smiled. Yes, and the army will take to the streets again to kill everyone in sight. Rocky turned his eyes to the wall when he remembered that massacre. That was a truly bloody day. Pythor ignored her indifferent manner towards him and smiled. Then do as you are told. It is better for them to die randomly than to start a food war. Can't you just bring more food from the rest of your planets? If half of those ships brought food instead of raw materials, the problem would be solved. Or listen, my southern province next to Skull Lake is not bad. You can even reclaim this spot using new fertile soil from one of the planets, and this will increase food production. I can totally help you with that. Rocky's wide right eye sparkled. Pythor didn't answer her, just gave her a meaningful look. All right. Rocky disappeared again, and after a while, Pythor heard the storm slowly moving away toward the next city. Pythor then focused on the only marshal who had kept his tongue in his mouth since the meeting began. Snight, how are things going on planet Gudda? Pythor's sudden question silenced everyone for the first time since the meeting began, sending all eyes on one of them. Marshal Snight was not as gigantic as the rest of the marshals. He was barely 2 meters tall. His features were also like most soldiers. He did not change much after increasing the dose of Durger the Devourer's blood in his body. However, although he is only barely 5,000 years old and still has a long lifespan ahead of him, his features exude anxiety and aging. Snight smiled and shook his head. What is there to say, Your Majesty? Of course, I need support. If it's available, send me some, and if it's not available, then forget it. It's not like the situation will get worse. You are demanding support again. You bastard. Didn't you ask for support last time and get an entire fleet? His Majesty even sent General Haros to you to work under your command there. One of the marshals stood up and shouted loudly. He was one of those asking for support, and of course, he would not allow anyone else to take it from him. The rest of the marshals frowned in annoyance as well but did not say anything. One of the main reasons why everyone started fighting from the beginning of the meeting was to get ahead of Snight and win the support this time, because they knew that that bastard would inevitably ask for more. Until the last meeting, Marshal Snight had 4 entire fleets under him, but he came and started yelling that he was being defeated on several fronts and asked for support, so Pythor sent him the first fleet, General Haros' fleet, to help him. General Haros is someone who has enough of Durger the Devourer's blood to be a marshal. His intelligence and personal strength are no less than anyone here. His fleet is mostly mid-level emperors, and he also has quite a few high-level emperors working under him. He is just waiting for a new planet to be appointed as the 10th marshal. This means that Pythor has unofficially appointed 2 marshals on planet Gudda. Some saw that Pythor wanted to support Marshal Snight and strengthen his party so that no one would call for his dismissal, and some saw that sending Haros was evidence of Snight's weakness and that His Majesty was thinking of dismissing him. In both cases, no one thought that this person would dare to ask for more support. Snight ignored his peers' words and looked directly at Pythor. With the help of General Haros, we were able to close all the gaps in the defenses and tighten the noose on the locals. We also won 2 successive big battles, taking about an additional 5% of the planet for the Empire. Everything was going well that we started to plan how to reduce local lands by half as soon as possible. But this is impossible now. What exactly is going on there? Pythor furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Although dismissing a marshal is very difficult because each one of them represents a pillar of the empire, he would not mind breaking one of the pillars if it was defective. Snight paused a little, then began to wander around and look into everyone's eyes as he spoke. Epic-level weapons were seen with the resistance in the last battle, and they were not small in number either. Everyone present furrowed their non-existent brows and remained silent as if they had swallowed their tongues. Even the marshal who had been attacking Snight a moment ago fell silent and looked towards Pythor, finding that even their emperor had lost his calm. Engraved equipment is divided into several categories, and each category can be easily measured by checking the clarity, purity, and grade of the runes, the raw material that was used to draw the runes, and of course the material from which the equipment itself is made. Usually, the order of engraved equipment is low, medium, high. When Pythor began his revolution 10,000 years ago, he received a number of scrolls from the Overlord explaining how to make low-level engraved equipment. 2,000 years later, during his invasion of the third planet, he obtained scrolls to make some types of medium gear. And 6,000 years later, Pythor obtained scrolls of high-level equipment as a reward after he managed to find some rare ores for the Overlord. And these high-level engraved equipment were the silver armor and weapons currently used by the Great Serpent Empire's army. But above this ranking, there are higher categories. This type of equipment is either very powerful or has specific uses that cannot be included in the same category as regular engraved weapons. And the first one in these higher categories is called epic equipment. The Great Serpent Empire has a few dozen pieces of epic gear distributed among their generals and marshals, each piece of weapon or armor worth the price of a few spaceships with their occupants. And these items were not made in the Great Serpent Empire. After 10,000 years, Pythor had not yet provided enough for the Overlord to give him even a single scroll to create anything worthy to be called epic. But rather all of the epic equipment they currently had was brought directly from the Middle Planetary Belt. Yes, Middle Planetary Belt. Whenever the sacrificial ceremony begins, one of Pythor's sons or his marshals goes to a specific planet in the Middle Belt using the space portal to deliver the accumulated pearls and rare ores to the followers of the Overlord. And while they are there, they kiss every hand and lick every foot they find until they obtain a piece of epic equipment they take back home. This is exactly why there is no epic full-body armor in the entire Great Serpent Empire, as every time they came back with a wrist shield, short sword, or something broken, anything they can find. One time, one of Pythor's generals jokingly asked for something to call the Space Ring, a low-level epic piece of equipment that they had seen many times on that planet. The general also added that the Empire needed it to store the energy pearls and goods in it instead of carrying them on their backs every time and to avoid losing the offerings of the Overlord. The response was that he was killed by the Overlord's followers because he did not know his position. What Snight said just now about the presence of a number of epic weapons on planet Gudda means one of two things. The first is that the Overlord who supports planet Gudda has given them scrolls to create epic equipment, or that they have built a space portal and begun making journeys to the Middle Planetary Belt and bring epic gear from there, and in both cases it's a disaster. That bastard, Pythor, cut off the curse midway and forced himself to calm down a little. That Overlord has no intention of dispensing with planet Gudda then. No one in the young planetary belt can make epic equipment. They must have built a space portal. What exactly are they going to do with it? Start conquering other planets while they are being conquered. One of the marshals scoffed. Right, we have already controlled 60% of planet Gudda. What would their Overlord want to do with a few epic weapons? He's just being stubborn. As for Snight, he spoke calmly and slowly. A person who has the power, influence, wealth, and enough time to support a planetary empire in the young belt, you can expect him to be stubborn and hate losing. After all those years of war with that relentless planet, nothing can surprise him. The war against another planetary empire is extremely exhausting, and planet Gudda can't be considered a full planetary empire yet. First Marshal Celebus looked up at Pythor. What do you want to do now? What are the options? Pythor replied calmly, it is true that this was not the first time the situation on planet Gudda had been discussed, but this time was completely different. The first Marshal turned back to look at the rest of his peers. Planet Gudda is indeed the destination that drains our resources the most currently, and a large number of our fellow suns were killed there, but it is also a planet full of Acrian metal, which we mainly use in making our engraved equipment, as well as it is full of energy pearls. Only 5 years ago we found 200 energy pearls in one of the caves under the sea. In addition, planet Gouda is full of fire path energy in its southern half and ice path energy in the upper half. And this makes it an excellent location to search for ancient plants and affinity-increasing herbs for these two paths. Although we will not benefit from them, they are still the most widespread paths and one of the few things that the Overlord receives from us in offerings. We cannot neglect any of these factors. In short, planet Gouda was not chosen by an Overlord for no reason. It deserves to be the seed of a planetary empire. All the marshals nod, although they are angry at Marshal Snite for asking for so much support. They undoubtedly know the importance of planet Gouda. Then a serious look came over the first marshal's face. But they are also evolving rapidly. When we invaded that planet a few hundred years ago, we knew that they had an overlord because we found artificial demi-humans like us. At that time, they did not have any kind of engraved weapons or any technique or some high-level equipment that worried us, so we sent 3 fleets, then 4, then 5, and each time we took more land from them, but at the same time there was a noticeable development in them. And this gradually increased until they finally caught up with us. They now have engraved weapons, pure law techniques, and various usage equipment from the middle planetary belt, and they have epic equipment as well. What more should we wait for? For them to come to invade us? This time, not even the rest of the marshals were able to nod. It was as if you were beating a small child every day, and you saw this child growing up in front of you every day, and you knew that he would inevitably take revenge on you soon. Their crimes on planet Gouda are like the rest of the planets they put their hands on. They cannot be counted or forgiven. Then the first marshal turned back to look at Pyther. In my opinion, we have 2 choices, one of which you must make today. The first is to send all the fleets we can afford to planet Gouda immediately and crush them before it is too late. Objection. I came to ask for support, not to abandon one of my assigned fleets. The 7th marshal slammed the table and looked at Pyther. The fleets that we can do without are those that have headed towards that new planet called Nahari. If you withdraw any more fleets from one of our planets, it will cause a major disruption. We can barely maintain a balance as it is. The rest of the marshals nodded. The 5 fleets that were sent to planet Nahari were originally under their command, but they were suddenly withdrawn without taking the opinion of any of them. Is a new planet more important or preserving what they currently have? According to the report, planet Nahari is 5 times larger than the Poison Rock planet, and the northern region there contains no less than 400 marshal impairs. That is why we sent the 5 fleets together. Its energy level is equal to the same density as the Poison Rock planet, even though it has no owner, and according to the 7th Elite Vanguard team, he said that the energy pearls there are so widespread that even commoners on the streets carry them, and on top of all that, the planet is close to us thanks to the appearance of a fixed wormhole that connects us directly to it. The first marshal stared into the speaker's eyes. Look me in the eyes and tell me that we have to abandon a place like this because you're a bunch of failures who can't take out a few locals even after thousands of years. All these properties cannot be combined in one planet, right? That marshal slowly sat down. Unbelievable. This is close to the specifications of the planet that the Overlord chose to be the center of his empire in the middle planetary belt. If we put our hands on it, then... Another one looked around in amazement. He also once went on a mission to deliver the offering. Since we put the matter of the 5 fleets of Nahari aside, we will continue with what we were saying. The first marshal clapped, drawing attention back to him. As for the second option for planet Gouda's situation, we should make a peace treaty with them and withdraw from there immediately. We are wasting our time this way anyway. Since we are not going to win, why don't we just withdraw with what's left of our dignity? The marshals all took a quick glance at Pyther and found exactly what they expected. Although he was trying to keep his expression calm, he was undoubtedly seething with anger. If there was one thing their emperor hated more than weakness, it was losing. One of the marshals quickly suggested that Pyther's focus be directed to something else. The 5 fleets went to planet Nahari and it's over. With 5 fleets attacking at once, any resistance they find will be crushed immediately. They've been there for months, right? Perhaps they've already wiped out the local life there, and even if they don't completely annihilate it, they will certainly be able to survive against whoever is left of the locals with just a fleet and 2 there. Let's withdraw 3 of the 5 fleets from that new planet and keep 2 behind. Yes, that makes sense. I support this proposal. Even if the balance of power is disturbed there, at least 2 fleets will be able to hold their ground. Even Snite nodded. If I get 3 fleets as permanent support, I can promise to take over 80% of planet Gouda within 100 years. Seeing that all the marshals had agreed on something, the first marshal turned back to look at Pyther, waiting for his orders. I want to hear a report from the 5 fleet commanders first and how far they have come. Pyther spoke calmly, giving tacit approval to the marshal's words, which made them breathe a sigh of relief. In their eyes, the whole situation had already been resolved. Even if the situation is bad there, General Sully will still send a reassuring report and say that everything is fine. Otherwise, Pyther might see him as incompetent and his ambition to be promoted to marshal will evaporate. The first marshal nodded. Well, we don't have to wait long. A correspondence ship arrived from Nahari a few weeks ago. Pyther furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Why haven't I heard their report yet? Celebus? I plan to bring them to you immediately, Your Majesty. The first marshal bowed immediately, but they insisted on going to meet the space portal attendants first before meeting Your Majesty. They wanted to meet those in charge of the space portal? Why? Pyther raised his head in surprise. Perhaps they wanted to know the costs of moving between Poison Rock and Nahari in light of the presence of the wormhole? I do not know exactly, but we can find out shortly, my lord. I summoned them and those in charge of the space portal before the meeting began. They are outside waiting to be invited. I wanted to leave them at the end so that we could hear something reassuring as a conclusion, but I can include them now to solve the dilemma of planet Gouda. Get them in. Pyther gave a gesture with his right. After a while, several people entered through a huge gate. They were all looking at the ground, drenched in sweat. When they saw the marshals behaving like this, they thought they were nervous about standing in their presence and in the presence of the Emperor, so they laughed arrogantly. Relax, there is nothing to be afraid of here. The Emperor spoke in a reassuring voice, then looked towards the person wearing military clothing in front. You must be the leader of the correspondence squad. Give me the news. How much time does it take to completely colonize Nahari? The correspondence officer raised his head in fear and looked into the marshal's eyes for a moment, then looked at the Imperial's feet while trembling. Your Majesty, if we do not withdraw immediately, I am afraid that the one who gets colonized will be us. The sentence that the head of the correspondence team said was like a bomb that exploded in everyone's ears. It didn't matter if it was Pyther, the 9 marshals, or even the guards who escorted the correspondence team and those in charge of the space portal inside. They all looked at him in silence. Ha! After at least a full minute, a small laugh escaped Pyther's mouth. Ha ha ha! After him, the rest of the marshals started laughing out loud as well. Even Snite, who always looked worried, smiled and shook his head. The first Marshal Celebus stopped his angry laugh and looked at the head of the correspondence team in the eyes. The Great Serpent Empire is not an entity that anyone can insult, not even its own sons. Describe everything that happened to you as it is and leave it to us to judge. Stop exaggerating to polish your general's face at the expense of the Empire's prestige. This will be your first and last warning. It looks like Dirrit screwed up big there. Another marshal laughed angrily. They are the ones who will get colonized. It's a planetary empire that rules over 5 planets and has roots in 4 other planets. Colonize them? Who can even stand in their way? Because of the intensity of the provocation, the marshals actually forgot why they invited the correspondence team to enter. Yes, I will tell you what we saw and leave the judgment to you. I apologize. The leader of the correspondence team fell on his head and both hands, sweat pouring down his bald head. Please allow me to start the report from the beginning. Although we were able to control the central region of the planet, overall, Nahari's mission did not go as it should. We engaged 70 martial emperors in the eastern region. With a high probability that the number is greater than that, we found 550 martial emperors in the southern region in addition to 3 giant Treant creatures. Each of them can fight a fleet alone. We battled them, and 50 of our martial emperors fell in that battle. The northern region is said to have at least 400 martial emperors, while the western region has fog surrounding it, but they destroyed half a fleet in such a short time that we did not receive a distress call. So we believe that there are 300 to 500 martial emperors in the western region as well. The 9 marshals sent quick glances at each other. According to the messenger, they saw with their own eyes plus 600 martial emperors, and there were potentially 1,000 more. This is roughly equivalent to half of the Great Serpent Empire's emperors. And with those martial emperors, we fought against millions of soldiers who were users of the first, second, and third stages of the heavenly laws, all of them using pure major heavenly laws, the likes of which we had never seen before, purer even than those engraved on our equipment. Then the messenger continued as he remembered that day, that local army is all armed with engraved weapons. Some of them wear medium-level engraved white armor, but there are many of them wearing high-level engraved gold armor. Those golden full-body armors are not inferior to our silver equipment. Two marshals stood up. Millions of medium and high-level engraved weapons and armor? It took them thousands of years to make the amount they have now. Apart from the sheer strength that matches us face to face when it comes to the martial emperors and engraved weapons, they also have an army of fast-flying winger beasts ridden by a number of archers with engraved bows and arrows. This beast corps easily managed to stop our cannons from providing any benefit and even shot down 2 warships. Then he remembered something and raised his head slightly. That's right, they have black flags engraved with strange patterns that are not like the laws we know. When those flags combine in a certain way, they produce a very powerful domain of laws within them. The locals call them arrays. They have offensive, defensive, and healing arrays that can form instantly. Because of these arrays, we have close to collapsing more than once, and we also saw them use one of the arrays to create a miniature space portal instantly to escape. The rest of the marshals stood in succession, even Snight, who thought that the worries of the whole world were on his head alone, stood in stupefaction. They have the ability to make miniature space portals? Even Pyther opened his eyes wide. He had taken a copy of how to make a space portal from the Overlord, and he definitely did not understand a single one of those complex runes. He had never crossed his mind that miniature arrays could be arranged that could create a portal instantly. Please, before you react, wait until I show you something. The messenger quickly stood up and then took out a cube object from his bag. This is the observation box located on the mothership of the 14th Fleet. Please watch this. The messenger started clicking a few things and an image appeared in front of everyone. Boom, boom. In the moving image, there was a fight taking place between 2 armies on the ground, the first wearing entirely silver armor and numbering approximately 60,000, and the other army wearing gold and its number not exceeding 20. It was the battle between the sect and the 14th Fleet in the eastern region. It's 3-1 in Sully's favor and he can't win. Those golden shields. One of the marshals clenched his hand tightly. Look behind them. Snight quickly pointed towards the black vortexes, drawing attention to them. They're coming out of there in large numbers. Is this the mini-space portals you're talking about? Yes, my lord, but this is not what I turned on the display for. Please focus here. The head of the correspondence team stopped the battle at one point when Sully tried to send a handful of his men to take control of the perimeter of the mini-portals. What exactly are we looking at? Marshal Nast basically narrowed his narrow eyes. In the picture in front of him, there were a large number of sages of the Great Serpent Empire wearing the elite symbol and rushing towards the mini-space portals. This is a good strategy. Even Snight nodded when he saw it. If he were in Sully's place, he would probably do the same. As for the other side of the image, there were people who appeared before them wearing golden black armor and possessing golden spears with a black spearhead. But whoever they were, as long as they were not emperors, they were doomed to death in the face when they faced the elite sages of the 14th Fleet. Okay, now please give what's coming your full attention. After this sentence, he took a deep breath and restarted the show. Boom. No, why the... Silence returned to the enormous hall once again. All the sages of the Empire were slaughtered within several seconds. Not a single one of them was left with a complete corpse. Is this... One of the marshals had something come to his mind, but he laughed awkwardly and shook his head. No, this is not possible. Another one muttered in stupefaction, it's IT. Now what are you all thinking? It shouldn't be. Should it? You're all thinking it. Just say it. Snight bit his fangs. Epic. These are complete epic armor sets. Impossible. One of the marshals smashed his chair. Stop saying silly things. Do you lot even see what I'm seeing? Full body armor and weapons in a uniform design. There are at least 500 of those sets. Are you saying that this young planet has 500 complete epic sets? The eyes of the rest of the marshals twitched, their eyes telling them that only fully epic sets could give such power to the user, and their hearts screaming at them not to believe what they were seeing. First Marshal Celebes couldn't remove his eyes from the black gold armor until after a few minutes. Only then did he shift his gaze towards the messenger. Your fixation on this picture means that you have information. Say it quickly. Yes, at first we were not completely sure, but after these sets appeared again in the Battle of the South on some martial emperors, we intensified investigations during the battle and made a discovery. Then he went forward and pointed towards the spear of one of the spears. Do you see this here? It is the Uracilium medal. Uracilium? They really are low-level epic sets. One of the marshals sat weakly. The rest of the marshals looked at the picture again, with astonishment and weakness in their hands and feet. How could they not know Uracilium? A number of the epic weapons they brought back from the Middle Planetary Belt were made using this particular metal. It is true that their planet, especially F4, contains tons of this metal, but they simply do not have a way to process it, so they use it as part of their offerings to the Overlord. Look here too, these are the banners that make up the heavenly law domains. All the banners you see are made of Uracilium as well. The messenger moved the display to bring a glimpse of the battle of the emperors in the southern region. Then he zoomed it back towards a certain point and left it running. At this moment, one of the human emperors summoned a large hammer out of nowhere. What's going on? One of the marshals furrowed his eyebrows. He already had an idea about what he saw but was trying to suppress it. The messenger moved the picture again toward the human's finger. Please look at this ring, we think it is a space ring. You will find it on the fingers of all the martial emperors of planet Nahari. One of the marshals smashed a cup containing a sticky red liquid that he was holding in his hand. Look here, please. The head of the correspondence team then changed the image to be of Fogan fighting. This human has pure blood, and at the same time he is a full-fledged martial emperor who can use laws freely and with the same power as artificial demi-humans. We have seen hundreds of such cases in the Battle of the South. Without the head of the correspondence team reading the atmosphere in the room, he continued his crazy report, and look here and there. All of these are demi-humans, but they are not artificial. They are real races, with the blood of beasts flowing through their bodies like rivers. We have counted 30 different demi-human races in that battle alone. One of the impatient marshals came forward and grabbed the messenger by his armor. What's going on over there? Why do they have so many advantages? Why do they have technologies that we don't have? One of our generals was killed for a space ring. For the hell of it. Leave him alone, Nast. What does has to do with any of it? He is just a messenger. How will the messenger speak when you are suffocating him? The first marshal reached forward and came between the two, and smiled at the messenger. Speak, no one will harm you. What do they know about the situation over there? Do they have an overlord? Of course, they have an overlord. Where the hell would they come up with a way to form Uracilium otherwise? Out of his anger, Nas struck Celebes' hand and pushed it away, but he quickly apologized when he realized what he had done. I'm sorry, I'm just sorry. Then he went to stand next to the table with the rest of his peers again. Only seconds later did Celebes move his piercing eyes away from Nast's body, and turned back to look at the messenger. Speak. Say everything you were sent to say. On planet Nahari there are 5 generals of great ability and experience who must have a conclusion about the situation. What do they feel about this? Even Pyther looked at the messenger with concentration. His response would mean a lot. As for the head of the correspondence team, he patted his neck for a moment to confirm that it was still there, then replied, the 5 generals do not know whether there is an overlord for Nahari or not because there is another explanation that can be taken into account. That planet has been privileged by witnessing 4 Truth Chosens, 2 of whom are alive. Who said Truth Chosens? Rocky appeared again and shouted excitedly. But the rest of the room wasn't as enthusiastic. 2 of them? 2 Master Truth Law users are alive on Nahari right now? Are you sure? Pyther tried to stay calm but couldn't. He had set foot on 9 planets before, and had never heard of a single Truth Chosen in their entire history. Of course we are sure. General Sali personally faced the 4th Truth Chosen in a 1-on-1 battle and experienced the Eye of Truth himself. It is said that his mentor, the 3rd Truth Chosen, is still alive and is behind most of the innovations spread in Nahari. The messenger quickly responded, by the way, the third truth chosen is a very strange character. He predicted our arrival 50 years ago, and he was also betrayed by a sect he had established. This is why he has not shown himself in the war yet, so we do not know his position nor location until now. There are two in one planet. Rocky clapped and then circled around Pyther like a child who had eaten too much sugar. Hey, get me one. Okay? That third one looks good enough. Bring him to me. One person has advanced a planet in the young planetary belt to such a degree. This is impossible. There is definitely an overlord behind him. One of the marshals didn't seem convinced. With him or not, do you want to engage in a war against two master law users? Snight snorted. Compared to the conditions on Nahari, I currently live in paradise. Subjugating this planet will require at least 10 more fleets. Can we provide such an army? We are here fighting over who will receive the support of the 31st Fleet after its formation. The marshals glanced at each other and then shook their heads. Pyther himself sighed and went back to resting his back on his chair. Snight's question was a difficult one to answer, but his answer was easy. No, they had neither the army nor the intention of engaging in a place like this. Celebus calmed down as well. He knew that by this point there would be a vote to abandon planet Nahari and immediately withdraw to salvage what could be salvaged from the 5 fleets. Is there anything else you would like to say about Nahari? But he asked anyway. Every word from the messenger's mouth will be recorded for use in the future. Their inability to confront Nahari now due to the pressure of wars on 4 planets does not mean that they cannot return later. Well, there is one thing left. Everything I have said so far has not made the 5 generals lose hope of continuing the war on their own. What brought me to this time was not to inform you of these things to obtain a withdrawal permit or even to request support. Rather, I was assigned a mission that we believed might enable us to establish our footing on the planet Nahari despite all the obstacles therein, and this was the reason I went to meet Mr. Spiro Spates, but after I met him, well, perhaps he should explain the rest. The head of the correspondence team took a few steps back and pushed someone standing behind him forward. Spates is the family responsible for managing the Empire's space portals since their creation. Are you the current portal administrator? One of the marshals, even though he used the portal Poison Rock planet a few times, does not mean that he knows who the gatekeeper is. Yes, sir, it's me. Spiro bowed towards the planetary emperor and then the marshals. This was the first time he had stood in the presence of all these symbols. Well then, what do you have? The first marshal looked him up and down, then asked quietly. In response to the first marshal, a control panel was brought to me from a space portal on the planet Nahari to examine it and try to extract something from the transmission records. Indeed, I made some discoveries because the portal has been activated a lot recently and the information is still very present. There are mainly 2 things must be said. The first is that we are facing a planetary empire that has at least 4 planets. And the second is that they have 0 respect for energy pearls. For planets? It's a fully developed planetary empire already. I think we should have expected this after hearing all those attributes. Celebus muttered and shook his head. Now the losses of 50 martial emperors and a few warships didn't seem so bad. But they should start celebrating because the rest had survived. Trying to attack a planetary empire using only 5 fleets is suicidal. Hey, what do you think about that control panel? Is that portal the same as ours? One of the marshals asked quickly. Another marshal interjected in surprise. What's with this strange question? This is an important question. Then he looked at Spiro again. How would you describe that portal? Is it made of the same materials? Does it have the same runes as ours? Is it better or worse? Pyther furrowed his eyebrows slightly and looked at the administrator in charge of the space portals curiously. He already understood the meaning of the question. Oh, thinking about it, the control panel is identical to ours, the same switches, the same materials, even the same runes. When the panel was first brought to me, I thought it had been ripped out of one of our portals. Spiro looked around hesitantly. The marshal who asked him nodded, then looked towards Pyther. We have now confirmed. They have an overlord. Pyther nodded, leaning back fully on his throne. Everyone here knows that the space portal owned by the Great Serpent Empire is not something special. They went to visit the Overlord's followers more than once and saw ordinary people using the space portals to move around for huge sums of money. Later on, they learned that the design of the space portal was not some miracle specific to their overlord as they thought, but rather something that could be bought. Anyone can buy the design if they have enough money, and in fact, setting up a space portal is a very profitable project in the Middle Planetary Belt if one has enough power to protect it. At the same time, they know that it is impossible for it to be just a coincidence that the space portals are similar. The space portal has runes from the 5th and 6th stages of the space path. No matter how many users of the Master Law of Truth are in Nahari, they are still part of the young planetary belt, and it is impossible for them to reach anything of this level. Even in the entire Middle Planetary Belt, it is difficult to find someone who uses the space path, let alone the 5th degree of it. At this point, Celebos looked towards the planetary Emperor Pyther. Your Majesty, I believe we have a comprehensive view of the situation now. The 7th Vanguard Division's report was hasty and false. Nahari is the stronghold of a planetary empire in the true sense of the word, and they have a strong supporter from the Middle Planetary Belt, and from what we can see, their overlord spends lavishly on them, and this can be seen in the epic armor and weapon sets. If 500 epic weapon sets appeared anywhere in the Middle Planetary Belt, it would attract all attention. Then he looked towards the marshals, but they also don't have any warships. The number of emperors at best is 1,400, which is a little less than half of what we have in the army. They also don't have any artificial demi-humans, so we don't need to expect them to have any strong heavenly laws. They probably only have elemental laws at best. Pyther raised his eyebrows slightly. How could he not understand his friend and prime minister? Are you encouraging me to continue the invasion? You understand what this means, right? Celebos sent a meaningful look toward Pyther. I'm just saying that for the price of 500 epic sets, we can buy another army like ours. Pyther went silent and contented himself with looking into his friend's eyes. Both of them did not utter a word, but their gazes said a lot. Wait. A few minutes ago, we were fighting over which of us would get the support of the 31st Fleet after it was ready. Since when do we have an army sufficient to declare war on another planetary empire? One of the marshals waved quickly, then pointed at Spiro. Secondly, shouldn't we know first why the Overlord is spending so much on planet Nahari? Who knows what kind of secrets are there? I can tell you why. The person in charge of the space gates raised his hand in shame. A while ago I said I discovered 2 things. I only explained the first, so you may proceed. Pyther gave permission. Thank you, Your Majesty. Well, how do I convey it? When using the portals, we use a huge amount of ordinary energy stones. To send out a sacrificial group every 10 years, we create an artificial mountain of tens of millions of energy stones next to the space portal. This always makes the number of people who can pass at one time very few. Spiro shook his bald head. Even from the tales of masters who have visited the Middle Belt before, they say that the portal keepers there pump a huge amount of energy stones into the portal through a space ring, so it's safe to say that we're not much different from the Middle Belt in this regard. Then Spiro took out something from his bag. It was the control panel. The users of this portal, however, did not face this problem. They use energy pearls instead of regular energy stones. They use energy pearls for the portal? This is really extravagant. Celebos furrowed his eyebrows tightly. Sir, I have not talked about being extravagant yet. When I said that they do not respect energy pearls, I meant that. Please see, according to the records on the panel, I can find out how long the portal remained active, how many people passed through it, and to what destination they went. After I did some calculations, found that this portal alone needed at least 250,000 energy pearls to have this kind of record. Spiro spoke in horror. Celebos also felt startled and took a step back before regaining his balance. 250,000 energy pearls were consumed in one portal? What is this bad joke? If all the offerings they made to the Supreme Lord were added together, the total would not reach 25,000 energy pearls. Celebos quickly looked at Pyther to ask him what he intended to do with this information, and found his old friend standing for the first time since the meeting began. The rest of the marshals were also standing with signs of stupefaction and disbelief. With one sentence from Spiro, everyone realized that the 9 planets they were proud of were nothing more than a fart. I must contact the Overlord. Pyther looked up at the ceiling. I will start the preparation. We should be ready to take off tomorrow. Celebos did not hesitate for a moment or ask why. The decision to invade Nahari became bigger than him and Pyther himself. No, it will take months until we can meet the Overlord. That's if we get to meet him at all. I will summon his soul shard. He will understand when he hears the news. Everyone, get out immediately. He did not wait for them to come out, but rather got up immediately, then knelt on both knees and hands and began muttering, I ask you, my supreme overlord, to honor me with your presence. I ask you, my supreme overlord, to honor me with your presence. 10 hours later, I ask you, my supreme overlord, to honor me with your presence. Swoosh shards of dark light quickly came out of Pyther's head and quickly began to gather. The form that the dark light took was very vague. It did not appear to be a human, a demi-human, or a mutant. It only had a head, 2 arms, and 2 feet. Other than that, it seemed like a moving piece of darkness itself. That dark avatar opened his shiny white eyes, then took a few steps until he sat on Pyther's throne and placed his right foot on top of his left knee. Finally, he seemed to notice Pyther kneeling on all fours in front of him, then opened and spoke in an indistinct voice as if the laws themselves were speaking. This better be good. Nahari planet. Clatter. The clear sky above the central region seemed to be suddenly struck by a disease. Black and purple clouds suddenly appeared out of nowhere, each one laden with lightning bolts that appeared strong enough to strike down dragons and phoenixes. The ground began to shake and crack. Tongues of lava and burning groundwater poured out from under the ground with extreme force, as if they wanted to touch the clouds. The beasts began to retreat slowly as they looked up in fear. Their legs failed them more than once and they fell on their faces as if they were learning to walk for the first time. The birds and winged beasts took off and began beating their wings like crazy, trying to flee in all directions. If the central region had not already been evacuated, countless mortals would have died from the harshness of the scene and the intensity of the overwhelming aura. Among the clutches of the clouds above and the fangs of lava and fiery groundwater from below, an ambiguous black shadow was formed. It was not clear whether it was a man or a woman, an elder or a youngster, a human or a mutant. It was just a black shadow enclosed by a black and red radiance. The shadow circled around him with his bright eyes and let out a small laugh. Just a planet without an owner. You think you can kick me out? How ironic. Don't overestimate yourself, little spirit. Then the shadow raised his hand and closed. Boom! The clouds that seemed to have come from the bottom of hell disintegrated and vanished. The lightning bolts that were ready to turn the entire central region into ash exploded from within and disappeared into thin air. And even the tongues of lava and groundwater coming from below collapsed and returned to the cracks they came from. The doomsday disappeared as if it were a dream. The sky immediately started to thunder again. And this time the heavenly laws in the entire central region began to become violently disturbed. Calm down, little girl. I'm just here to have a look. I won't mess with anything. I think. The shadow returned to placing both hands behind his back and scanned his surroundings with his luminous eyes that seemed as if they could penetrate anything and his soul sense that easily enveloped the entire central region with ease. The shadow raised its eyebrows slightly, then disappeared. The next time he appeared, he was standing inside a large zone that could hold an entire village. That zone was closed from all sides like some kind of an underground cavity or a cave inside a mountain that had not yet been discovered. Despite this, the place was not dark, but rather bright, as if it had its own sun. The shadow approached one of the huge, illuminated pillars in the middle of the cave and smiled. Everything here was covered with energy pearls. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, and those huge pillars, everything was naturally composed of energy pearls that had never been used before. The shadow looked around in amazement. If this cave appeared on any of the neutral planets in the middle planetary belt, it would ignite battles that would claim countless lives. There are no less than 300,000 pearls in this cave alone. If this planet is left intact until it is promoted to the middle planetary belt, then I am afraid that small kingdoms like myself will not dream of setting foot in it. Only those sects and star academies can compete for it. The shadow murmured, smiling, showing his luminous teeth. It seems that little snake wasn't exaggerating. After all, my trip here isn't wasted. Then he gently extended his hand towards the wall. The atmosphere inside the cave suddenly became extremely heavy, and a childish voice was heard. If you touch anything, This incarnation of yours will stay here with me forever. The shadow stopped his hand midway and replied in a cold voice. You will not get out of this confrontation without losses. Just be obedient and watch from the side. There's nothing for you here. Go back to where you came from. The childish voice came out again. Ha ha ha, whether this is for me or not is none of your business. Go back and do something useful and leave the game to the players. The shadow laughed loudly, of course. He knew who he was talking to. If the player is a cheater, I have the right to intervene. The childish voice spoke as an extremely gloomy law began to gather around the black shadow densely. This is your final warning. It's okay, I won't touch anything. The shadow raised both hands laughing. But I won't leave now. The shadow disappeared again. The next time it appeared, it was standing high in the sky of the eastern region, looking towards the top of a tall tower rising above the rest of the buildings of a city that seemed to have been built recently. At this moment, there was a human holding something that looked like a remote, sitting behind a large number of people of different races. The shadow smiled and tilted his head slightly, watching. Inside the Senate Tower, City of Hope. Here look. Jabba fixed a certain image and pointed at it with a shout. This image was part of an optical recording of the battle in the south between the forces of the Great Serpent Empire and the forces of the True Beginning Empire. Jabba bought this recording from the merchants of the Burton family for 600,000 energy pearls. What exactly are we looking at, boss? One of the elders asked in a low voice. The image in front of them showed the True Beginning Empire's ground army approaching the warships. The clash had yet to begin. Look at the army. Jabba pointed at the picture nervously. There are approximately 1.5 to 2 million soldiers who use the laws in that army, all of them mutants like us, meaning they are Nahari people. That's right, Sect Master, all the Nahari races are in that army. It seems that the True Beginning Empire wants to use us, the indigenous people, as cannon powder. One of the elders stood up and shouted to gain the favor of the Sect Master. But he received a sharp gaze from Fogan that made him quickly sit down. I'm not talking about that. It's normal to defend our planet ourselves. Jabba shook his head, then pointed again at the image and muttered, Where are the Nahari giants in that army? All the elders went back to looking at the army again, more closely this time, and some of them moved and zoomed the image several times, and the result was a surprise to them. There are indeed a number of Nahari giants in the army, but their numbers do not exceed 100 individuals, and they were all in the front row without wearing any kind of armor. There must be an explanation. Perhaps the shadow swords are keeping them for later battles? One of the elders said the first thing that came to his mind. Nonsense. Do you think I knew His Excellency yesterday? If there were more of them, they would all be standing on the front rows. Jabba shouted and then gritted his teeth. What we see now means that the southern giants are completely finished. There is definitely another explanation, Sect Master. Fogan showed a fake smile. What explanation? Are you saying that His Excellency had deliberately made the giants rest so he could make the other races battle? All right, let's put this aside. Let's just forget about the Northing giants for now. How can you explain what happened to the giants of the western region? Jabba hit the table. He was feeling extremely panicked at that moment. Not long ago, an ice bridge was built between the eastern and western regions, and several billion intelligent beings were transported. Not a single giant among them. When Jabba and the rest of the elders went to receive the new arrivals from the western region that day, they found their faces blackened with fear and dread. Some of them even screamed when someone approached them at a certain distance. Later, after everyone calmed down, Jabba learned that the demons had tightened their grip on the entire western region. And although they did not harm those people, however, they all said that they saw hell but did not enter it. All the inhabitants of the western region saw atrocities happening to the race of giants, whether men or women, infants or old, powerful or mortal. The entire giants' race was mutilated in every street and in the middle of every square. All the lower races deeply hated the giants with passion. That was undeniable, but even they were depressed and had involuntary tremors from what they saw. Some of them told Jabba that they saw giants hanging by their feet and being skinned alive. Some of them said that a large number of the giants of the western region are still alive, but they are treated like livestock and taken one by one to meet their fate as a walking meal. Some even said that some demons whose bellies were full used the giants as entertainment. The horrors that Jabba heard that day haunted him mentally and psychologically, and was unable to sleep until several days later when he collapsed unconscious from overthinking. What about the giants of the Central Region? Apparently, they were given a chance and included in the army and even given weapons. But when the migration took place, only 30,000 giants had reached the eastern borders successfully. How many giants were there in the Central Region? Roughly 200 million. When Jabba saw everyone silent, he shouted again, "The giants of Nahari in the Western region are long gone. They were eaten alive. As for those in the southern and central regions, they were executed and thrown into battle by force until they were almost extinct. If we put them together, it wouldn't be enough to form a village. There is no home left for the giants other than the east and north." One of the elders raised his hand and spoke with a smile. "Okay, technically we also killed 90% of the Nahari giant population in the eastern region because they refused to submit to their last breath, and the rest of 10% were thrown into prisons, so the only home of the giants now is the north. Alright, you may continue now." That elder tensed when he felt everyone's gazes on his body. "What? Did you say something wrong?" Jabba felt weak in his feet, so he sat down again, placing his head between his palms. When he was about to open his mouth again to defend what happened in the eastern region, he felt a dense aura gripping the back of his neck. "All of you evacuate the floor." Yes. The elders let out a sigh of relief and disappeared in moments. There have been many awkward meetings like this one recently. A few times they talked about the high prices of the Burton family's merchants. Other times they talked about the low prices at which the Burton merchants buy raw materials and metals. And a few other times it was about not being able to get their own information network because the shadow swords were blocking them, and of course this is the third meeting about the disappearance of the giants. The strange thing is that after complaining in all the meetings, Jabba breaks something and asks them to leave without taking any action. Today was no different in their view, at least the sect master did not break anything this time. Jabba remained with his head in his hands until everyone left. What the elders did not see was that his facial expressions were not angry or tense as usual, but rather were full of fear. Good job keeping them away, it was a smart move. A black shadow surrounded by a glow of deep red appeared in front of Jabba. "I would hate to kill them all before I get a chance to talk to you." Gathering some of his strength, Jabba raised his head to see the black shadow standing in front of him, and muttered weakly, "Who? Who are you?" Shadow showed a bright smile, placing his hands behind his back. "Me? Normally I would exterminate anyone for asking me to introduce myself, but I think you are qualified to have a few answers as a master law user. I won't tell you my name, you're not qualified to know it yet, but I will tell you my status. Those who know me call me the goddess of blood and destruction." Goddess? Jabba looked at the shadow with astonishment. Indeed, the power he felt was powerful, but not to the degree of deification. "Yes, and a very strong one too, if you take my opinion." Shadow laughed softly, then took a few steps toward the disc that Jabba was displaying and began examining it. Suddenly Jabba stood up and took a few steps back. At this moment, he remembered that this was not the first time he had known of someone calling himself God. So this is the rival who the all-seeing God was talking about. Wait, you are a woman? Jabba asked in amazement. The image he had of this entity being a terrifying, planet-devouring monster was beginning to crumble a little. "Can't I be a strong woman?" Shadow raised his eyebrows and spoke in such a stern tone that Jabba took another step back in fright. But then the shadow laughed. "All right, rest. This shard is too weak to represent my true form, and I don't want anyone to see me anyway, you're not worthy." After the shadow said her arrogant words calmly, she continued to observe the disc for a few seconds. "Oh, this thing is indeed interesting. This is not the usual way of visual recording, but it is not bad at all. Even in the middle planetary belt you will find a good price for it, but I bet it will not be close to the price you paid for it. What do you want from me?" Jabba felt a little embarrassed and angry when he heard the last part. Shadow finally looked away from the disc and looked at Jabba with glowing eyes. "Jabba, son of Thandor, I have heard some interesting things about you, and I have come to see if there might be some way to cooperate." "Cooperation? What is there between you and me that we can cooperate on?" Jabba took another step back. Relax, putting distance between us will do you no good. Even if you go to the end of the world, you will still be at my mercy. The Dark Soul Shard laughed as she saw Jabba retreating in fear, and then her features turned serious. Honestly, I want the energy pearls from this planet, and I will get them, and you will help me. So you really are the one behind the half-snake bastards. Jabba stopped backing away and looked into Shadow's eyes with some anger. You're the reason for everything that happens to us. You're the reason for... Jabba almost shouted that it was the reason for turning life on the planet into hell, but compared to what is happening today and 50 years ago, the planet has actually evolved and has not really turned into hell. Even his status has differed like heaven and earth. Perhaps the only ones who can say that they have tasted hell are the giant race. Does he still count as one of them? Jabba did not know what to say, so he continued with, Your followers are the reason for killing millions of people in the central region and displacing billions from their homes. Cooperation? You just need my help to loot my world after you killed its inhabitants. You are asking me to be a traitor. The Dark Soul Shard took a few steps around the table with her hands behind her back, then said in a quiet, vague voice something Jabba never thought he would ever hear. You're right. Things shouldn't have gone this way. What? Jabba was shocked. Then the Dark Soul Fragment continued. I know that the Reckless Pyther and his army are not ideal followers by any means. They are mostly beasts who love the sight of blood and feel that any other being is inferior to them. When they see a new planet, instead of trying to negotiate with its inhabitants and perhaps start a successful trade like your master is doing, they begin the process of extermination immediately, and the invasion turns from simply setting foot on a planet and depleting its resources into a war of extermination in which one of the two sides must die. This dragged them into long-term wars on several different planets and delayed their development by several thousand years. It is foolishness. Jabba listened, eyes wide open, shocked. I do not plan for them, nor do I even communicate with them. The last contact I had with young Pyther was 10,000 years ago when I gave him a few techniques and equipment. After that, he behaves as he pleases and brings offerings to my followers every few years. Please do not make the mistake of thinking that I am saying this to absolve myself of responsibility. No, a large part of the reason for their brutal behavior is due to the poor blood transfusion device I gave them. This Jabba didn't know what to say. Did you just apologize for invading Nahari? Me? No, not at all. In my view, you are all worthless lowlifes. Your death or your life makes no difference to me. I'm just saying that we have another way. The Dark Soul Fragment laughed. And what is this path? Jabba gritted his teeth. Now he no longer knows how to read the person in front of him. One moment she seems to be justifying her position and the next she is saying the most arrogant thing that could be said. Follow me. The Dark Soul Fragment turned to face him. Even if you are using the Master Law of Truth as a secondary path, you are still wasting your talents in a place like this. Follow me and you will get a good place and a better life, and you will definitely expand your horizons and see things you have never seen before. I see that you have a space portal inside this city. I will give you coordinates to a planet in the middle planetary belt, and it will take you to me immediately. Hey! Jabba raised both hands. Maybe we should meet for lunch a few times first before making that move? The eyes of the Dark Soul Shard glowed red for less than a second. In that short moment, Jabba felt his soul leaving his body and returning again. He landed on both his hands and feet, panting with his eyes wide open. You're pushing your luck too much. The childish voice echoed like thunder, but only the Dark Soul Fragment heard it. Calm down, little one. I only showed a little bit of killing intent and he fell by himself. I still haven't touched him. The Black Soul Fragment chuckled, then took a few steps toward Jabba. Let's avoid sarcastic comments from now on. Shall we? Jabba gasped hard, then clenched both hands tightly. I will not leave my homeland behind burning and go anywhere. All right, fair enough, now we have a direction to talk around. The Dark Soul Shard clapped. How about I give you your planet then? What do you mean? Jabba pushed himself off the ground to only sit on his knees. Just to make sure before I continue, you're not the one controlling the rest of the planet, right? The Dark Soul Shard asked with slightly furrowed eyebrows. She came bearing in mind that the fourth Truth Chosen, Jabba son of Thandor, was the one conducting the war on Nahari, But when she came to meet him and happened to see that meeting, it occurred to her that the facts that Pythor had told her were not entirely true. Jabba waited a moment and then opened his mouth. No, I have no power anywhere other than the eastern region. The rest of the planet falls under His Excellency's authority except for the northern region. I don't know what's going on there. This was common knowledge anyway. Any soldier who saw the shadow swords would know that His Excellency was the one wielding it. His Excellency? What a title, and is this His Excellency the third truth chosen, that is, your master? The Dark Soul Shard smiled. Correct. Jabba nodded. Let me guess. That person is not from this planet, and he is the one who brought you these space portals, these techniques, and these engraved epic weapons. The Black Soul Fragment asked with some curiosity. Yes, this was also general information. Now the picture is starting to become clear. The Dark Soul Shard took a few steps towards the balcony. This third truth chosen works under the command of a middle planetary belt overlord, and is the one who discovered this amazing planet and gave him its coordinates to seize its resources. No wonder. I bet he's selling you techniques and weapons at sky-high prices. I don't know who that overlord is, but I'm a little jealous. He chose a good follower, much better than those scumbags I chose randomly just because there was a beast using a minor destruction law on their planet. No. His Excellency doesn't think that way. Jabba looked down, his forehead beginning to drip a lot of sweat. Until this moment, he thought that the Burton family's merchants were exaggerating prices in retaliation for the Nahari Union sect's betrayal in the past, and because he had severed his relationship with him as a disciple. It never occurred to him that Robin was trying to drain the planet in this way. He knew that his master had a mission from someone called the All-Seeing God, but wasn't the mission to confront the invasion. No, what if he's lying? What if he had the same mission as those snakes and had come to empty the world of its riches? What confuses me is this whole thing about predicting the arrival of invaders. It's too accurate to be a coincidence. The 50-year time limit has already passed, and more than a year has passed since the first arrival of the invaders he spoke of. So it's safe to say he means us. This is definitely not one of the capabilities of the Master Law of Truth. What's going on? The Dark Soul Shard completely ignored Jabba's collapse and gently patted her chin. And then her aura changed to become a little turbulent. This lofty and long-term prediction ability. Could it be that this has something to do with one of them? If they think I'll back down just because of their status, they're dead wrong. Then she turned back to look at Jabba angrily. Hey, pull yourself together. This is no longer about you, your master, or my foolish followers. You, a local, are now standing in the middle between two great powers that want what you have, and today you will choose a side. I am taking the side of my homeland. I will fight to the end. I will not let any invader come and take anything. Whoever he is. Jabba shouted forcefully. Idiot! What's a homeland? The Dark Soul Shard raised its voice slightly. Is the soil and treasures, or the people who live in it? If everyone you know moves to another place, will you stay here calling a handful of dirt your home, or will you go after them? Jabba calmed down a little. What's your point? The Dark Soul responded directly. My point is that I value talents, and I want to have a master law user by my side. Your master already has an overlord, so I will settle for you for now. Accept me as your overlord and help me subjugate this planet. After the war is over, I will have the Great Serpent Empire retreat, and I will teach you how to refine the planet's spirit so that planet Nahari is yours. I will pass on to you techniques and weapons superior to the ones I gave to the Great Serpent Empire to form an empire of your own, and most importantly, I will give you security over everyone's lives and provide you with a foothold in the middle planetary belt. And in exchange for all this, you will only send me 95% of any energy pearls you find. The rest I will leave with you to develop your empire. At least I am honest with you. After we win the war, I will do with you as I did with little Pythor. I will give you all the information and techniques you need. Then you will come to me every few years to give me what is mine and leave. I will not interfere in anything else. You will also have a strong supporter who can protect you and offer you what you lack. I see that you are human. I can solve this problem for you, and this time I will provide you with the blood of a primitive beast that is at least 50 million years old, and I will do it with the blood-changing device that I use on my close followers and not the garbage that I left with Pythor. Then the Dark Soul Shard smiled slightly. Now let's see what happens if you continue siding with the other player. Oh, relax. No need to guess or even threaten you. What are they doing on your planet right now? They are stealing energy pearls by selling you things at ridiculous trifles you can find lying around the roads on any planet in the middle planetary belt. This is of course without mentioning what they did in the rest of the regions where they collect all the pearls and resources day and night without even the need to sell any garbage. And on top of all of this, they want to exterminate your race and use the rest of the races to fight under their flag in the name of defending their world when they themselves are invaders. Then she looked away as she continued her words. Suppose they prevail thanks to their advanced preparation and my foolish followers are defeated. What will be the results? The Great Serpent Empire will continue to exist and provide me with what I need. I will just pretend that I never saw this planet before. But what will happen to you? They already control more than half of the planet and have strong momentum. Will you stand up to them and tell them to leave Nahari? Or will you say that the eastern region belongs only to the locals and just let them plunder you through trade? Or will you perhaps lower your head to them and become just another local vassal of a planetary empire? The same thing you think you are resisting me for. Jabba opened his mouth to speak, but there were no words to say. There was not a single word he heard that he could refute. They are already being robbed, and he knew it. The giant race is being annihilated, and he knew it. What could that dark shadow do to Nahari that the true beginning empire had not done yet? After a full minute of silence, Jabba had nothing to say except, "And if I refuse to join you? Oh, you'll join." The Dark Soul Shard responded quickly and with absolute authority. The breath I wasted talking to you has a price, and its price is submission or destruction. Jabba stood up and took another step back, the words coming out of Shadow's mouth as if they were absolute truth. I gave you excellent terms. If you want more, it means you are overestimating yourself in front of me, and I don't like that. Then he heard her speak with some anger. Don't let being a user of the Master Law of Truth get over your head. If we are talking about Master Laws, then the Master Law of Truth is the most widespread in the universe in terms of the number of users, and the number of those who have been able to obtain a good position among the Truth Chosen is very small, even throughout history. You are just workers that we overlords can depend on, good followers who complete the work that takes a year in just a month. But that's all. Then she took 2 steps toward him. It is true that I would be happy and proud to have a truth user by my side. But this is no different from me bragging about a fine vase or a carefully trained dog. You will be just an additional ornament on my inevitable throne. Was that clear? What is required of me? What is required of me? Jabba clenched his fists as if he wanted to smash them to dust. The situation he found himself in was nothing to envy. Oh, no wonder the Master Law of Truth chose you. The Dark Soul Shard smiled. Although the Master Law of Truth is the most widespread, especially in the young planetary belt, it is also the only Master Law that cannot be learned, nor does it have any techniques. This particular Master Law is the only one that chooses its user. It is said that all users of truth are born sharp and rational. Your decision proves to me that this is true. Jabba gritted his teeth hard. The things required of you are quite simple. First, stop buying nonsense from the third Truth Chosen in exchange for my pearls. Second, do not allow him and his assistants to use the eastern region for their convenience starting today. I am not telling you to enter into direct confrontation with them. Just find some excuses to keep them away until you receive support from your brothers from the Great Serpent Empire. The Black Soul Shard took a few steps toward him. Oh, and I want you to tell me the history of the third Truth Chosen since the day he was born. Who knows, I might find a way to recruit him to my side, or at least some clues about his overlord. But hurry so that little girl doesn't lose her patience. Jabba ignored the comment about the little girl since he didn't fully understand it, then sighed and shook his head. I can guarantee you the first and second since this what I intended anyway. But the third is impossible. The aura of the Dark Soul Shard changed again. It was clear that she did not like the words. Sorry, not because I don't want to, but because I can't. Jabba shook his head. I exchanged a soul oath with His Excellency previously. I swore not to reveal anything about him, and he swore that he has no intention of harming the giant race. Jabba's voice began to decrease little by little until he fell weakly in his chair and looked up. Memories of that meeting between him, his master, and Orzon began to resurface. I had almost forgotten that he had sworn not to harm the Nahari giant's race. How could I have missed something like this? Is that why he didn't touch the giants of the east and north, and even left behind a number of giants of the central and southern regions? Because he wants to save the giant race from extinction. Even after his anger over what happened to his wife and son, he still thinks about saving the Nahari giants race. How did I not notice this? Soul Oath? Don't resist. Let me see for myself. The Dark Soul Shard calmed down a little after hearing Jabba's explanation, and then some of its red aura quickly covered Jabba. Jabba quickly stood up, the strength and intensity of the red aura making him instantly forget his moment of nostalgia. You weren't lying. There are indeed old signs of a soul-restricting oath. The Dark Soul Shard nodded, but it doesn't restrict you anymore. It's clear from the restriction disappeared around 30 years ago. Jabba forgot his feeling of danger from the red aura and stared at the Dark Soul Shard in its glowing eye. What do you mean it disappeared 30 years ago? This type of oath has been experimented a lot, and it is impossible for it to disappear unless the oath tablet is destroyed, and that specific tablet is with, wait a second. Theory years? Wait. The Dark Soul Shard's smile grew, but it didn't say anything. That son of a bitch really intends to wipe out the Nahari giants race. Bam Jabba was so angry that he couldn't control his breathing. He kicked the table made of the bark of Father Hoffenheim, who had bought it for a very large sum, and it shattered into several small pieces. The Dark Soul Shard took advantage of Jabba's obvious anger. Enough! You can still curse and break things later. I pay dearly for every second I spend here. Tell me everything you know about your master and his overlord from the beginning, and in brief. Jabba's rapid breathing calmed down a little, and then he found another seat for himself and sat down on it, placing his head between his arms. My former master is called Robin, from a human family called Burton. He was born on a simple planet whose martial age barely reached 60,000 years. When he was 14 years old Jabba was very interested in his master back then. One of the first things he did after the end of the war to unify planet Jura was to research his entire history before meeting him. He questioned every single member of the Burton family's old generation with a smile on his face. He never expected that he would use that information in this way a few years later. Despite this, there are many things about which only a sentence or two is known. For example, the fact that Robin was saved from death in the cave by a person called the All-Seeing God and returned as a 12-year-old child. But he did not know anything about the details of what happened in the cave that day. However, as soon as he mentioned what happened in the cave, the Soul Shard's aura became disturbed. Later on, the person called the All-Seeing God appeared again and told Robin that he needed him to save a planet called Nahari, and that his rival was preparing his army to invade that planet within 50 years, and that he must, his rival, continue. For the second time, the Soul Fragment's aura was disturbed again. Indeed, Jabba continued his talk about Robin's innovations during that period, most notably the talismans, then about Robin attacking the Kingdom of Doliver and the War of the Three Kingdoms and strengthening the Burton family, then marrying Mila and using the space portal that he received its design from the All-Seeing God and going to Nahari. Then he talked about how he was taken prisoner by a local circus, how he discovered the major heavenly law of gravity to escape, and what he did to the circus members. Then he talked about how he chased him with a whole team of soldiers stronger than Robin, and yet he was defeated and a talisman was tied to his neck, and how Robin was impressed by his intelligence and took him as a disciple that day, and about Robin's plan to communicate with inferior intelligent beings at that time, and how he established the sect from scratch. Then talked about Robin joining the academy with him and his kidnapping and torture at the hands of the Fire Salamander organization and how he managed to fool and control them. Then he talked about how he gained the trust of monsters called demons and that they became his most loyal and powerful followers to this day. Then he spoke about unifying the eastern region under his banner within a few years, and about his plan to unify the entire planet Nahari within only 50 years and the strengthening and preparing it to confront the Great Serpent Empire without bringing a single weapon or companion from another planet. Then he described that fateful day when news arrived of what had happened to his wife and son. Since Jabba started speaking, the Dark Soul Shard showed interest, sometimes raising her visible eyebrow above her slightly glowing eyes, sometimes nodding, sometimes looking annoyed. But when the talk came about linking the murder of Robin's wife on planet Nahari and what happened to his son, her aura was greatly disturbed. After that day, Robin changed into a completely different person. Instead of focusing on following his mission, he ordered the sect to mobilize an army to attack the northern region, before he took a number of demon kings and headed towards his home planet. And there, Jabba shook his head as he spoke about the massacre that befell the entire ancestral continent, about his plan to successfully get the family prisoners, and then the atrocities that befell the Flame Continent. Then he talked about the betrayal of the sect and the disintegration of the eastern region again, and about how Robin withdrew his hand from planet Nahari and went to subjugate 2 new planets and succeeded in doing so easily even though the resistance was strong, and about the founding of the research and development team and how with them he was able to invent a method for using uracilium metal, which greatly increased the strength of the Empire's army, and about creating the revolutionary arrays. In the end, he talked about how he cut the link between him and Robin as a master because he did not want to help defend the planet Nahari, and then on all the events that followed until he reached today. Even though the Dark Soul Shard told him that every second she spent here was paid for, Jabba did not summarize much, nor did he ignore anything he could remember. From beginning to end, placing his head in his hands and narrating as if he were telling the story of his own life. It was not known if he was telling it to the Dark Soul Shard as he was ordered, or only to remind himself one last time. As for the Dark Soul Shard, it turned around and took a few steps towards the balcony, and remained silent for quite a while. Then Jabba heard her speak again. Well done. There is one last thing I want you to do to prove your loyalty to me. If you do it, everything I promised you will be yours and much more. What is it? Jabba replied choked. The Dark Soul Shard turned again to face Jabba and its firm voice sounded. Find a way and kill Robin Burton, the truth chosen. That person must not be left alive. Then she disappeared from the floor as if nothing had happened. Nahari planet, southern sky. Okay, let's see what we have here. The Dark Soul Shard appeared out of nowhere, folding her hands over her chest and looking down, towards the hordes of soldiers and equipment. After leaving Jabba, the Soul Shard wanted to withdraw directly from Nahari to stop its losses, but something inside her told her to stay to take one last look at what would soon be hers. And the battlefield in the southern region was her first destination. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers wore complete engraved golden armor. With a single glance, the Dark Soul Shard knew that each one of those full-body armor was high-level engraved equipment. And a larger number of the soldiers wore scattered armor pieces or held a piece of good weaponry. In general, there was not a single one among them standing without an engraved piece of armor or weapon. As for their races, this was a bigger dilemma. Just by looking, the Dark Soul Fragment spotted dozens of races that were naturally mutated from humans. Wherever she looks or extends her soul sense, she discovers a new race. You need to find another hobby. This is just pathetic. The Dark Soul Shard shook her head. What do you know? This is art. As long as I have the ability, why not produce more mutants? This increases the competition and helps my vast lands become populated quickly. And also if one race fails to produce any major characters, one of the other races will do it. The little girl's voice sounded annoyed. Did your effort succeed? A simple smile appeared on the sliver. You are now being invaded by artificial half-humans, and somehow the truth-chosen truth, Robin Burton, managed to create a planetary empire of pure humans and invade you as well. Your mutants are completely useless. Okay, I won't argue with you about that. The childish voice then disappeared again. The Dark Soul Shard smiled for a moment as it scanned the southern region army that had managed to withstand 5 fleets alone, then quietly disappeared. Above the skies of the western region, this place, according to Pyther's report, is surrounded by fog. They do not know what is happening inside it, but it says that there should be a powerful army that destroyed half a fleet with ease. According to Jabba's tale, this place was dominated by a race known as the demons that are loyal to the truth chosen, Robin Burton. The Soul Shard chose the place where the bloodthirsty aura was condensed the most and appeared to look at her usual calm, folding her hands in front of her chest. But in the next moment, the Dark Soul Shard took a step back in fright. What the hell? The Red Plague? You have the planet-devouring Red Plague. At this moment, there were millions of goblins beneath her. Blood was spread everywhere instead of dirt, and the smell of rot replaced the clean air. Among them were a large number of Nahari giants as well, but they were being cut up alive amidst their bone-chilling screams. Yeah, about that, it's not something I'm too proud of. The childish voice was heard with an apologetic tone. It is because of your continuous interference in modifying human embryos, you fool. You are still in the young belt, but you already have more than 100 different intelligent races and tens of billions of intelligent creatures. What were you waiting for? The Dark Soul Shard shouted in irritation. Damn it, if you were in the middle planetary belt, you would have been trapped and destroyed before this filth could grow and spread. I know, when they appeared, I broke down crying. Fortunately, the first Truth Chosen discovered them when they first appeared and left his bloodline a way to control them, otherwise I would have been finished a long time ago. The little girl's voice sounded frightened and thankful at the same time. Then she spoke happily. I have always feared the day when the Nahari giants would lose control over them. But that will not happen anymore. Look at them carefully. Look at them. What could I find in this eyesore? The first thing I'll go through after taking over this planet is for it to be combed out of the Red Plague and, without realizing it, the Dark Soul Shard went back looking towards the demons after the planet's spirit told her to. This time, she did not turn her face directly, but only looked at them for 3 seconds before realizing. What is this? Within the portrait of chaos and murder below, the Dark Soul Shard detected a semblance of order. There were certain roads taken by the demons that led the Nahari giants, and there were other skinny demons that moved in the streets to eat the remains and lick the blood as if they were cleaning the place. Some of them specialized in receiving the giants, cutting them up, and distributing them to other demons who were waiting patiently. What was strangest was that a few other demons were standing on the side, moving their mouths and making movements with their hands as if they were in a civilized discussion. What is this? What's going on here? Why does the Red Plague look like they started a civilization? The Dark Soul Shard pointed down and spoke in a lifeless voice as if it had seen the strangest thing in existence. Awesome. Huh? In my eyes, this is Robin's greatest achievement. Nothing can stop this, not even his creation of epic weapons. The planet spirit spoke proudly as if she was the one who had done it. Amazing? The Dark Soul Shard muttered as she moved her eyes and her spiritual sense on this primitive society below. These are the demons that Jabba mentioned as Robin's strongest and most loyal followers? The Red Plague is capable of something like this. Yes, this is truly unique. The Dark Soul Shard remained focused on the bloody scene below it as if it were watching the greatest civilization in the universe and muttered, There are 700 demons here that have reached the domain of Blood Emperor. The numbers of Blood Kings number in the tens of thousands and the numbers of cubs are no longer countable. The Red Plague in this western region alone is enough to destroy you and destroy dozens, or even hundreds, of planets in the young planetary belt. This place has become an epicenter of an epidemic. The whole planet should be burnt to ashes. And he is controlling them. Hey, just listen to what I say. Don't start a fight that you will regret. If you want my opinion, you better just leave. The girl's voice did not seem objectionable, but she just laughed. Leave? The epidemic is still new and a world catastrophe has not yet appeared. I will burn them all after taking over this place, just watch. Now, where are you hiding, you little brat? The Dark Soul Shard smiled again and began to look around for a few minutes, before finally fixing her gaze towards the north, before her smile increased. Oh, there you are. Virum. Northern sky. The Dark Soul Shard looked down with a look of triumph and mockery. The location she had her eyes on was nothing much. The entire area surrounding the foot of the Great Northern Edge Mountain was covered in extremely dense blue forests where everything looked the same. But at this particular point she was looking at, there was indeed something out of place. A worn wooden door that looks like it stood there for thousands of years. Ha! Looks like someone found you. And it doesn't seem new either. Is he local? The tone of mockery immediately turned serious. Aside from the wooden door, there were a number of Emperor's domain beasts scattered around this point. Whoever had discovered this place was still around and had a way to control high-level beasts. Haha, not just one. The childish voice returned with an exasperated laugh next to her. And then a puff of air directed the Dark Soul Shard to look in a certain direction. If she can't prevent this stranger from finding her, then at least she shouldn't make her feel victorious. In that direction, there was a dark spot located under a number of thick branches. It was impossible to see anything in it except a few insects. But from whom was it hidden? The Dark Soul Shard immediately spotted something. A user of the major heavenly law of darkness, the Shadow Swords, knows your location? The information the Dark Soul Shard has is limited to what she heard from Jabba. For example, she now knows that there is a special organization called the Shadow Swords that uses the major heavenly law of darkness and is armed with the best weapons that the true beginning empire can provide. But she does not know to what extent this organization has penetrated the northern region, and certainly do not know about Holak or the second Truth Chosen who built this wooden door. The Truth Chosen, Robin Burton, is wasting no time. Wait until I send someone to inform him of your presence and what you said to his disciple Jabba. He will destroy your followers and kill that traitorous bastard. I advise you to admit defeat and withdraw while still having some of your dignity. The spirit of planet Nahari laughed hard, but in their heart, she was crying as she remembered the agreement between Holak and Robin. What's life without some challenges? This only makes things more interesting. A smile appeared on the face of the Dark Soul Shard. Then she returned to focusing more on the Shadow Sword, and with every passing moment her smile calmed down more until it disappeared. Just look at him. He is a martial emperor who uses a law that's a level higher than the elemental laws, and in a pure form as well, and yet I observe a cruel soul binding that he willingly took. The 2 daggers on his back are made entirely of uracilium, making them epic weapons. The black armor set scattered around his body increases his strength, resilience, and speed, and is filled with engravings that directly aid the Majo heavenly law of darkness. The entire set is also epic. There are several tattoos on his body, similar to those found on the beasts and demi-humans, bearing runes belonging to the paths of water and life of the 3rd stage, so that he may gain greater defensive power and increase the probability of his survival, and she was not satisfied with this. She immediately turned her gaze to his hand. The ring is in his left hand as a space ring, and therefore it directly enters the epic classification, regardless of how much space inside it. The bracelet on his left hand works to automatically adjust the gravity around it, and any tool that works automatically in this way exceeds the ordinary engraved classification and approaches the epic. Those things that I mentioned so far alone make this young man qualified to be a bodyguard for any major family in the Middle Planetary Belt, but here he is watching over a rotting wooden door. Then, when she was almost finished, she pointed at him again. Look, that ring on his right hand has soul runes that transmit mental messages through soul imprints. How did Robin Burton think of something like this? This way, you will say what you want without opening your mouth. The voice will arrive pure and directly in your head. It will be translated directly if it is in another language, and you will receive messages from people who only know your soul imprint so you won't be disturbed. Even in the Middle Planetary Belt, we have not yet obtained this type of technology. Have I really returned to the young planetary belt? Or have I jumped into the ancient planetary belt by mistake? The Truth Chosens are not the same, you must have read about that. Even the planet spirit side. It seems that we were going to have a strong rivalry in the Middle Belt in the near future. It is good that I arrived here early. Killing that person for me is as important as controlling you. The Dark Soul Shard sighed, then turned around and almost left the planet finally. But, The Dark Soul Shard disappeared from above the dense forest, and when it reappeared, it was still in the northern area. But the scene beneath it had completely changed. It was currently floating above a ruin that had no beginning or end. The debris piled up in ruins that blended together until they became like real mountains, and the corpses lay on top of each other in hills that decomposed until all that remained were the bones and some scattered dung resulting from the beasts having their lunch. The only thing that shows that this was a real city and that it was not a huge garbage dump for the entire planet is that it was still surrounded by the remains of a huge wall. The Dark Soul Shard moved forward a little until it reached the middle of the afflicted city. In this place, the ruins were at their most intense and the effects of a fierce battle were evident. However, there were a few columns erected here and there. It was clear that this was a huge palace and had been built with strong materials. The Dark Soul Shard landed in a certain place in the palace, and she looked around with furrowed brows. Spirit of planet Nahari. What does this mean? Something had happened here. Something that shouldn't happen. The voice of the Dark Soul Shard became more serious. Her aura began to grow and her glowing red eyes began to roam around that spot madly. Then she calmed down a little and a small smile appeared on her face. All right. What do we have here? Someone was calling me a cheater? Oh, please, don't try to pretend that you know what happened. The childish voice appeared again, hesitant this time. No, there's really no need to pretend. This happened a long time ago and only minor traces of it remain, but I know that reporting this incident in one of the Star Academies will bring you some unwanted attention. This time, being in the Young Belt will not protect you. The Dark Soul Shard's smile increased. What do you want? It's very simple. Keep this visit between you and me, and when one of my followers comes to refine you, you have to help him, understood? All right. Ha ha ha. The Dark Soul Shard laughed loudly and then vanished, this time truly leaving planet Nahari. Leaving the spirit of the planet behind, which took shape in the form of a human child wearing a lot of jewelry and bracelets made of pearls. She kept looking towards that spot, towards the celebration hall, for a few minutes, before sighing and disappearing again. Poison Rock Planet. The planet spirit, Rocky, circled a few times around Pyther's head while crossing her hands over her chest. From her speed and expression, it seemed that she was upset. Hey, why aren't you still on your knees and nose? It's been more than an hour since she left. The Overlord will return to inform me of his orders. I must remain ready to receive him. Pyther didn't even move his eyeballs to respond. With his knees, palms, and nose touching the ground for nearly an hour, he seemed to be stuck in place. Oof! Rocky stood on the throne and hit it several times with her small feet. The thing she hates the most since Pyther began refining it is that she knows that he is a follower of a woman from the Middle Planetary Belt, and not a follower in the sense that he is a disciple, for example, or a close ally, but rather a follower in the sense that he puts his nose in the ground when mentioning her name. No slave wants his owner to be a slave for someone else. At this moment, an oppressive aura reappeared in the room, and a dark red glow forced Pyther to hold his breath. The goddess of gentleness and beauty has returned. Rocky folded her hands again and looked at the dark shadow from top to bottom. Get lost. The black soul fragment didn't even look at Rocky. Hey, you don't talk to one of your followers. Rocky put her hand on her small waist. I am a planet spirit and I have an owner. I can eliminate this soul shard in an instant. An owner? The Dark Soul Shard muttered in a low voice and turned its gaze towards Pyther. Why don't you order her to destroy my soul shard? Mr. Owner? Rocky! Get lost now! Pyther shouted forcefully. Rocky looked between her owner, who had his nose in the ground, and towards the Dark Soul Shard several times, before hitting her foot on the ground several times. Oof! Then she disappeared. I apologize for this, Your Honor. Pyther shivered slightly. He had heard a lot about the power of this overlord when he himself once went to the Middle Planetary Belt. Destroying a shard of the Overlord's soul would not affect him but would only make him angry. Making him angry? Pyther does not dare to imagine the consequences of this. Even though Rocky told him that this Overlord is a woman, he still speaks to her in the masculine form because he is afraid that if he changes his tone he might anger her. Her next words made Planet Emperor Pyther's scales twitch. I'm angry, Pyther. K. Why is that, my supreme overlord? Pyther muttered, still not daring to lift his nose from the ground. Planet Nahari, it is as you told me and more. The shadow started to walk around Pyther. Just seeing it makes me angry that I can't have it. Is it really that special, Overlord? You must have seen many like it in the Middle Planetary Belt. Pyther asked nervously. Nahari is indeed something big in his eyes. But a planet in the Young Belt shouldn't enter the eye of someone like the Overlord. Oh, it is special indeed. Listen, Pyther, perhaps you will benefit something from this talk. Planets are created in the center of the universe, or what is known as primordial chaos, and the planet remains there next to the center of the universe for hundreds of millions or even billions of years until life appears on it and creatures multiply and know what energy cultivation is. Only when one of the inhabitants of the planet learns to use the first stage of any heavenly law does the planet break free from the center of the universe and swim away to enter what is known as the Young Planetary Belt. Then it keeps moving away until it gets into the Middle Planetary Belt. And so on. During all those years that a planet spends near the center of the universe, it acquires unique characteristics of its own. Each planet, no matter how ordinary its appearance, has something in it that calls for fighting over it. Some planets acquire high percentages of certain minerals and are fit to be affiliated with an empire specialized in industry and wars. Some of them contain certain gases and different environments, so it is ideal and can accommodate a large number of races without problems. This one would be ideal for the powers based on the slave trade. There is also a small handful of planets that are too large in size and are used as neutral planets for trade and interaction purposes. Of course, there is one type of planet that all large powers prefer and want, which are the planets that are filled with energy pearls, because energy pearls can buy everything and activate everything. Then she stopped and looked at Pythor. As for the planet Nahari, it contains everything I mentioned and more. It is undoubtedly fit to be a galactic seed. Pythor's sweat started to drip a little. Even though he didn't know what the term galactic seed meant, it seemed like a big deal. Then the shadow moved again. Nahari is one of those rare planets that form once every few million years by chance. When it appears in the middle planetary belt, wars will be fought over it for tens of thousands of years, and hundreds of planets in the young and middle belts will be destroyed during the war until the winner is determined. And often the winner will be a superpower that does not have a galactic seed yet and is willing to sacrifice everything to get the planet. I am angry because I do not have enough power to compete for a galactic seed yet, but there is no shame in that. The sweat on Pythor's forehead and head became like a waterfall, destroying hundreds of planets. For some reason, he feels unqualified to hear things like this. The Dark Soul Shard stopped behind Pythor and then moved towards him until she was standing next to his head. I'm telling you all this, so you know what you're dealing with. We may not have a chance when Nahari appears in the middle planetary belt, but we still have 70,000 years to milk it and then destroy it before it gets into the wrong hands. I want that planet, Pythor. It doesn't matter what you do to get it. Yes, Pythor shouted quickly before he could even understand the words, but then he caught what the Soul Shard was saying and murmured hesitantly, But just send a number of your men to the Destruction Pit planet. I will prepare you a number of epic equipment and a few toys that will help you in your mission. The Dark Soul Shard turned and took a few steps away from Pythor. Also, the fourth Truth Chosen, Jabba son of Thander, is on our side now. You can communicate and coordinate with him, but with some caution, of course. Excellent. Thank you, Overlord. Pythor raised his nose off the ground and then lowered it again several times in thanks. With a few words, the Overlord turned the mission from a difficult level into a normal conquest like any other. In addition to gaining a Truth Chosen on their side, this was the first time he had received anything directly from the Overlord since he received the blood-changing device from her 10,000 years ago. Anything else he obtained after that was through kissing the asses and feet of her followers and taking anything broken that they did not need. As expected of the Overlord, everything is resolved when she appears. Oh, one more thing. After Pythor breathed a sigh of relief, he heard a voice that sent shivers down his spine again. Order me, Overlord. The third Truth Chosen, Robin Burton, must die. I gave the same mission to Jabba, but I don't know if he has the ability, so you will help him. The Dark Soul Shard's eyes flashed red. It doesn't matter if he's on Nahari or any other planet. You must find him, and you must eradicate him. Yes, if he is not on planet Nahari, then he is definitely on one of the other 3 planets we got their coordinates. Please leave with the certainty that he is dead. I see. I hope he won't disappoint me, Pythor. I can't be disappointed in this one. Somewhere deep in the middle planetary belt, inside a dark room with only one light source coming from afar, a few books scattered about, and a tall, thin cup containing a drink redder than blood, a young girl opened her eyelids. The whites of her eyes were clear as milk. As for her pupils, they were bright crimson, like the purest kind of jewels. But she immediately closed her eyes again, placed one foot on top of the other, and began to gently rub her forehead. The girl was wearing a black dress that covered her entire body except for the area between the neck and chest, and even her delicate hand was covered with a thin glove. The girl raised her hand, took the cup, and brought it closer to her face to take a sip. Her face. Describing that face was not easy at all. How can one describe beauty itself? Her skin was smooth as silk and as bright as snow, Just sitting there was like a second source of light inside the dark room. However, her snowy white color did not give her the appearance of paleness. Rather, she was vibrant with life no matter how one looked. Her hair, even though it was randomly tied up with a dagger like red hairpin, still looked like a fountain of pure silver that could not be disturbed, and below that silver hair was a small forehead with two perfect eyebrows that seemed to be drawn with a pencil. Beneath them were those two charming red eyes protected by long, curled eyelashes. On both sides are two small ears from which hang earrings made of red gems. In the middle of her face is a delicate and small nose that seemed to be a jewel on its own. And beneath that nose are two lips that are not known whether they are redder or the syrup that flows between them. A human girl in her early 20s? No, this beauty was not for humans. And this prestige and powerful aura that surrounded her transcended the limits of humans. Helen, you finally opened your eyes. Why have you been unconscious for so long? A little girl formed from the threads of the rug asked gently. It was clear that it was the spirit of a planet. I heard the most bizarre story about a man. I cannot decide whether he is strong or weak, lucky or unfortunate, wise or foolish. The girl in black, Helen, smiled and took another sip of her drink. But it doesn't matter now. The main character will be dead soon. A story? The little girl tilted her head to the side, then put her hand over her little mouth and gasped. Your energy level. There is some damage to your soul as well. Have you spent all this time on a young planet? I can heal all the damage and restore my energy level within a few weeks in the time chamber. Don't exaggerate too much. The girl in black smiled and rested her head on the chair. Oh, are you planning on sneaking into the time chamber again? I hope you're ready to hear this news then. The little planet spirit laughed casually. What? The girl in black replied calmly, still with her eyes closed. What could the planet spirit say? For example, maybe there is a report that she lost a trade or lost control of a planet. How does this compare to what's in Nahari? Nothing could disturb her concentration now. The planet spirit smiled maliciously. Your father sent an invitation to you and all your siblings. A family gathering will be held next week. What? The girl in black stood up quickly as if she had been struck by lightning. Call all the available army commanders for a meeting right now. Gathering the army and launching a random war to pretend that you are busy will not work. You already used that excuse many times. Plus, have you forgotten that you need the time chamber? There is no escape this time, hee. The little planet spirit put her hand to her mouth and giggled. Helen sat there weakly, resting her forehead on the fingers of her left hand, and let out a long sigh. All right, I'll go. Just tell the men to prepare a number of epic equipment enough to arm several thousand individuals. There is a big war about to happen in the young planetary belt. Oh, and from where exactly will they get that equipment from? Helen, do I still need to remind you that you're broke? The planet spirit crossed her hand on her chest and raised one eyebrow. Helen bit her red lip for a moment. We will borrow the Third Army's weapons then. Tell them to hand over everything within a week. The planet spirit took 2 steps forward. You want your men to continue a war against another planetary kingdom naked. It wouldn't be the first, even I fought without a single epic weapon at some point. Helen waved uninterested. Okay, I won't argue with you about that, I will send orders. The planet spirit nodded in understanding. A few thousand years had passed, but she still remembers that army of beggars who came and forged a path of blood until their master was able to defeat a huge number of competitors and refine the planet's spirit for herself. There is even no need to go back in time that far. Up to this day, if a soldier in Helen's army breaks his armor or sword, there will be no replacement for him. After a short silence, Helen continued, just tell Cyril that if we win the Battle of the Young Belt and get that planet, we will bid farewell to a life of poverty forever. The Third Army's sacrifice will not be in vain. They just need to man up and endure. Normally, she would not have given any of her leaders as much as an explanation for issuing a bizarre order like this. As she said, her soldiers are accustomed to fighting with what is available. But General Cyril is now in a battle against a large family over the rights of a planet in the middle planetary belt. The battle is already fierce, and he requests reinforcements every few months. When new orders arrive, he will most likely need at least a few calming words. You're going to the family gathering anyway. You can just ask your father for. The planet spirit's words got stuck in her throat after he noticed the cold look from the red eyes in front of her. All right. Geez, keep your gaze to yourself. Why do I even bother with your business? I'm going to do mine. After the spirit of the planet disappeared, the small room became quiet again, and Helen returned to resting her back on her seat and looking at the blood moon through her large window. A truth chosen of the highest order, a massive planet at the level of a galactic seed. A person who calls himself the all-seeing God and can predict the future says that he is my rival. Where did all this suddenly come from? Something strange is happening. Something I can't put my hands on. A few days passed while she was sitting there, watching the eternal blood moon in the middle of the sky, trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle. A huge puzzle that she found herself in without her realizing it. In the end, she sighed, then took out a black mask decorated with black feathers and a red jewel hanging from the left side. With it she hid her entire face except for her red lips. Then she silently disappeared.